1,000 or more gold ahead in the group stage at the 15-minute mark. So he is the key carry for this team. He actually outputs over a third of the team's damage in their games as well. So maybe you go down towards bottom lane and put it there, or maybe you want to look at opening up that mid lane tower and cracking that open so you have more space on the map.
We'll have to wait and see. Right now, Mickey looking for another roam. He has his eyes on the top side of the map for now. He will be spotted out by that little ward by the Raptor camp, though. So Gen.G knows this is coming, and Life is responding in kind. Both only level 5 for the time being. Jin now making his way up. He does push in the bot side, but I don't think G2 is going to be able to steal anything off the back of this. Perkz is just going to walk straight over a ward, and Gen.G, they're playing very conservative. They recognize when it's their turn to move on the map, but they're also very aware of when G2 get to move on the map. And we talked about it in draft. G2 want to roam, they want to look for picks, they want to fight, they want to skirmish, and Gen.G recognize that, but Ruler may have slipped up. Ruler
has cleanse. I think it was a blue card that was locked in. There's the cleanse. Ruler gets underneath the tower, but already he is down. Tanked up by Caps, the kill goes to Jankos.
It was in fact a red card that came out from Caps, and while that slow did help, perhaps he wanted to try and bait that cleanse out early from Ruler. Either way, he holds onto it, uses the cleanse when the stun comes through from Mickey, but it is a kill for G2, and this is big. You know, G2 was constantly looking for that pick, looking for the skirmish, and one of the big things about bringing Mickey into the mid lane is it guaranteed priority, because BDD immediately played more defensively. We saw him sitting underneath that tower. He was very aware of what was going on, but then Ruler seems like a bit of a slip in judgment there, doesn't show that same level of respect, and in that small window, G2 is able to capitalize and they get themselves a pick.
Small windows like that can define series like these. It's something G2 has done so well in the past. This year, at times, they have struggled to find their moments of opportunity. We see them striking in this game. Gold now in G2's favor as they control the top side of the map. CS discrepancies still on the side of Gen.G. You can see it's about 13 CS lead for Rascal in the top lane, BDD about 10 ahead, and it's about 20 for Ruler in the bottom lane as he looks to pick up his second plate but can't quite secure it yet. We'll note Mickey now has level 6, so look for that Grand Starfoil fall into a lane. Gives him just that little bit more pressure on the map. There's the Rift Herald used in the mid lane by Gen.G.
I think they will just get this tower. There's very little that Caps can do about it. He doesn't quite have the wave clear to stop, and that's going to be mid-tower going in favor of Gen.G. I really like this a lot. Going to make it a lot harder for Caps to roam as we see another gank in the top lane.
Spear goes wide. Jankos not able to get in the midst of the fight yet. I think he cancelled a couple of auto attacks and Wonder, well, he has to walk away as Rascal just gets back to the safety of his tower. This means that now Clid knows that the jungle is on the top side of the map and can just start up that dragon. And because the mid lane tower is down, the Sun Disc arises and the Emperor says, "You shall not pass this point, little minions." Gaining Gen.G even more control over this bottom side jungle.
Now, this isn't all too surprising, Medic. If you have a look at the G2 jungle, or Drake stats rather, they're not very positive.
No. They average, I think, 28% of the first dragons in the game, and overall, less than half of all of the dragons in their games.
Yeah, they don't prioritize early Drakes that often. They'd much rather make these cross-map plays to try and get Wonder ahead, get him more plates, but it didn't work out. Rascal did a great job of playing the weak side of the map. He was able to sidestep a lot of the spears, and that bites that he was able to get off onto Wonder healed him up a lot. You can see that even though he's been killed twice, he's actually doing pretty well in the farm department. He has a level advantage over Wonder as well. He currently still has his TP. And I just want to reinforce that Gen.G playing this laning phase extremely well. I feel like their comp is going to be very difficult to deal with come team fights. And I think that they've set themselves up very nicely for that. As once again, Rascal goes in for a little trade.
It's just going to force Wonder away. He's sitting on the Sheen and the Phage, so still on his way towards that Trinity Force, where the Camille begins to come online. Scales well into the later portion of the game. This can be a split push threat, but at the moment, Rascal very happy to deal with the Camille. And as the game slows down a little bit, I do just want to talk a little bit about the history of G2 against Korean teams, Vedius. I'll hold it for a second as Jankos is just going to invade the Wolves here. But the history of G2 versus Korean teams, because last year against SKT, they destroyed them. 3-2 at MSI, 3-1 at Worlds. Against Griffin in group stage, they actually struggled. They went 1-1 and then lost the tiebreaker. And then the quarterfinals versus Damwon was a 3-1 victory for G2. And the question really is G2 good against Korean teams, or are they just good against SKT?
Yeah, and that's depending on what side of the coin you fall. Different people have different opinions, and I think that this series is a great opportunity for them to prove that they are potentially Korea's kryptonite. But for the time being, Gen.G have dominated the laning phase, and they're setting themselves up nicely for the mid game. Twisted Fate has been able to get a couple of good ganks off, but it's not really resulted in a lot, and again, still a lot of this series left to go. Nothing decided just yet. But look at that. 0 turret plates gained for G2. And the gold's still even though Gen G have been able to get a lot of plates. But this game's still up for grabs from either side. 2 Drakes on the side of Gen G. Now, I imagine this next Drake is definitely going to be a big one. Infernal map on the board. A lot of damage is always going to be valuable. And you can see that G2 have started to open up the map a little bit more. Of course, after losing their mid tier 1, they've now swapped Perks and Mickey to the mid lane. This is going to hurt Twisted Fate's ability to roam as much as he wants. But it's kind of a necessity given that BDD is now towards the bot side of the map, also has the teleport, and they need him to be able to match. It's also very unsafe for Caps to just sit in mid lane. It's a very long lane. Potential flanks are very real, and he's only running the flash and the heal. So while he can likely get away from it, it's difficult for him to offer the same threat as perhaps a Perks and Mickey can.
Yeah, the chase potential from something like a Kalista with the Fate's Call on a Taric, the Dazzle is just so strong when the lane is that little bit longer. Caps is pushing in here in the bottom lane. Jankos shadowing him as BDD does what we've seen him do a few times. Respects the fact there might be a jungler on this side of the map, backs away, gives up some CS underneath the tower, but because of it, Clid knows that he's safe on this top side to take the Rift Herald.
Yeah, you can see something that we've seen pretty much all tournament long. G2 don't care about these early objectives. Rift Heralds, Drakes, they're happy to give them up. They're going to make these cross-map plays instead. They're going to look to try and secure some towers. But the biggest thing that's starting to develop is actually the jungle difference, Medic. Of course, Jankos has been a big topic of conversation among analyst fans throughout the entirety of the tournament. Depending on what side of the coin you fall on, many people believe that Jankos can't play carry junglers, whereas I'm more of the opinion that G2 don't know how to play through Jankos as a carry jungler, and I think that that's something that they really needed to work on coming into the quarterfinals. And you look at his farm, I feel like that he's played around priority very well. He's done a great job of counter jungling, and currently he has a 2-level advantage and is one of the highest gold earners in the game. So I think props to how Jankos has been playing this jungle matchup so far. Of course, as we progress later into the game, we'll have to see if that farm and that experience amounts to anything, because it looks like that he is going for more of the Athenes.
The Athenes, of course, does give you that bonus in team fights. You hit a spear, you heal someone, they get that extra healing, get some extra attack speed on perhaps your Twisted Fate or your Camille in this situation. Not sure you want to give it to Jin too often. And now Cleared with the second Rift Herald has the option to work his way down towards bottom lane. They're gaining control of the vision around where G2's blue buff would usually be, and with BDD coming in, this is very dangerous for Caps. Does have the Destiny, has Flash, has TP, he's going to try and walk his way away. There's the Rift Herald down, Life and Clid waiting around the corner as Caps just steps forward, and looks like the rest of Gen G are actually going to back away without even taking the tower, respecting the fact that G2 could close in.
It's actually very interesting that they decided not to commit to that. They had pretty good control, but it looks like the Infernal Drake is the priority. Notice that both top laners have TP. Rascal already going to start walking down. A lot of poke comes down onto Perks. Half his HP is now missing, and Gen G in a much better position as they use the Azir to keep the poke going. Beautiful control coming out from Gen G. They don't overcommit, they just use the range advantage that they have, and they're going to get this objective uncontested.
And we saw G2 so often give up the third dragon and have to play around the soul point if they thought it was a bad fight for them. Gen G going to take their third at only 18 minutes, Vedius. 23 minutes will have an Infernal Soul on the cards for Gen G. And although G2 have won a game versus a soul already this tournament, it is a very precarious situation to be in.
Yes, I would agree. Typically, if you can avoid it, you don't want to give away the soul. And I imagine that G2 will look to fight for the Infernal Drake, or I think in a more ideal world, they'll get a pick before the Drake spawns. Then they'll have a numbers advantage, and they can use that to actually then secure the objective rather than going for a straight up 5v5. But I think excellent patience has been demonstrated by Gen G. They've done a great job of just taking their time when setting up for these objectives. They've been very calm and calculated when it comes to approach, and this again is something that Yamato talked a lot about on the analyst desk. They are a very precise team. You know, they don't take a huge amount of risks. They're very controlled. They recognize the strengths of their composition, but now they might have been caught out.
Destiny coming in. Clid is already down before Caps can even join. Red buff taken away as well by G2, and you said they wanted a pick. It's about 4 minutes too early, but G2 showing some signs of life.
But I think they'll be happy with this pick. They're actually going to extend the gold lead to 2k now, Medic. This gold lead kind of coming out of nowhere, and now they're looking for a dive.
BDD stand up underneath the tower, teleport coming in from Rascal as he wants to join this battle. Caps having to work his way away, but the bear is on the hunt. Caps locks in a gold card, flashes away as he lands the stun. Rascal flash forward looking for a stun of his own.
So it was really interesting because both pros knew exactly what the other wanted to do there. Caps knew that the second he stopped to throw the card, that was the window that Rascal had to actually flash and stun on him. Because the moment that stun animation starts, Perks. It's just going to take a bit of a poke. But to go back to what I was saying, the moment that that stun animation starts from the volley bear, it's going to commit, even if he gets stunned. And that's all BDD then needs to be able to dive in, get the Shurima Shuffle, and then secure that kill. So good counter flash then coming out from Caps. Here, all you see is Klidge trying to secure his red buff and not recognizing that the bot side of the map does not belong to him. So, good pick from G2, recognizing the mistake, and they've now got themselves a 2k gold lead. So, even though they're at a Drake deficit, even though they've been behind in farm a little bit, Cap's doing a great job of keeping that gold even, securing some additional towers, and overall keeping the game very even. A very interesting game so far. I expected a little bit more bloodshed in the early game, honestly, Medic, but again, I think a huge amount of credit needs to go to how Gen G played the laning phase. We saw how they had a huge advantage in the 2v2 bot lane. BDD did a great job of keeping pressure up in mid, and Klid was beautifully controlling all of the objectives. Secured 2 early Drakes, 3, and 2 Rift Heralds as well. Meant that G2 was kind of stifled in terms of their early picks, but that didn't stop them. They were still able to find a couple here and there.
I'm going to take a second here, Vedius, to praise the support, because that's what I love doing. You know, I'm a support main.
You're going to talk about the vision score again?
No. So vision score, who cares? Zombie ward, you're cheating, okay? Mickey delayed his Umbral Glaive to get an Executioner's Calling. And if that is not the truest support I have ever seen in my life, I don't know what is. Like, no one else has Grievous Wounds. They're playing against Tarek. They're playing against Tarek. There's a lot of healing, okay? He delayed his Umbral Glaive. That's vision. That's extra vision score. That's extra numbers on the scoreboard. He is giving up to help out his team with this Grievous Wounds, Vedius. And he has.
Fair enough.
He's had a very good tournament so far. Just wanted to highlight he is a beast as the Destiny comes in. Klid, once again, the one they're looking to catch out. Life going forward. There's a stun on Klid. Babby caught out in the jungle and taken down. Life will follow shortly after, and here the picks. G2 have been looking for. The curtains open. Mickey flashes the wall. BDD is sniped by Perks. And Ruler forced away as well. Now only 2 players left for Gen G as G2 start up the Baron.
And that precision that we were talking about for Gen G suddenly comes out from G2. 1 pick turns to 2 into 3, and it's going to convert into a Baron. What was a slow, steady game from both teams, trading sides of the map, looking for picks here and there, has now exploded in G2's favor as they lock down the Baron and get themselves a 5,000 gold lead.
Ruler and Rascal looking for the push here in the mid lane. They will be able to get 1 tower, but Perks is on the hunt. The flanking Jhin is the deadliest as he looks to try and catch out Ruler. Perks has flash. There's a blast cone there for Ruler as well. Perks will not flash forward, but lands the deadly flourish. Wonder coming in as well. Ruler's already used his cleanse. Wonder has the flash, has the knock-up, will land a stun. The Hexagod made him make sure Ruler can go nowhere.
Good read there from Wonder. You might be wondering why did he bother ulting, but Ruler was in a position to try and flash over the wall to safety, and Wonder wanted to make sure that he could not get away. 8 kills now in favor of G2, and the plan's all coming together. Who needs those first 3 Drakes if you get the Baron? Look at this pick. It is that deadly combo of Twisted Fate into Jhin, into the Nilly Spear that you just can't escape from, and it was just kill after kill. It's so easy for Mickey to collapse on the squad as well. And G2, they never fell prey to going for those 5v5s early. They never tried to kind of go for those situations where Gen G could win. Instead, they waited for Gen G to be moving around the map, trying to set up vision, trying to catch a wave, and then they looked to strike. And they've been able to balloon this lead so quickly off of a single pick.
They really have. Their ability to keep Gen G from team fighting is what has made these picks possible, the ability to catch them out in the jungle. You can see the level discrepancy between the supports. Mickey level 11, Life only level 8. There's a level lead for Perks, there's a level lead for Caps, there's a 2-level lead for Jankos in the jungle. And even Wonder is ahead. And Betty, you said you talked to Bwipo about how Volibear can match up into a Camille if you play it properly. Well, when you're a level behind and the Destiny's coming in, it's very difficult for you to do that. Perks stepping forward, Deadly Flourish will connect Stormbringer, that will make the bear unstoppable. The curtains open and 1 shot connects, 2nd and 3rd miss as the 4th comes down. There's the stun card, 4th shot obviously going to hit on a stationary target, and Rascal just going to try and clear out these minions. Mickey, I'm not sure you needed to steal that kill, but I praised you earlier. Great kill steal, Mickey. Good job. As he gets his first kill of the game.
Wow, so G2, what are they now going to do with the Baron? Because they don't really care about the top side of the map. They have a wave bot, but there's no wave in mid. So BDD can actually take this tower without really being punished for it, but it will force Clid and the Life, rather, to reset and look to defend some of these objectives. They're going to be able to get back in time. I want to see BDD reset right now, but he does have the teleport, because he's the primary wave clear. Remember, the Azir is going to be very... Ooh, hang on. Rascal spawned in 10 seconds. Okay, so I thought that Clid would actually use his ultimate and they'd look to set up a flank, but Gen.G don't actually have any deep wards at all. If you have a look at the minimap, the entire bot side is vision-free for the side of Gen.G right now. All their control is up towards the top lane, and this means that being able to punish G2 for pushing these towers is non-existent. So good control there from G2 to mitigate any potential flanks.
This gold lead has just exploded, Vedius. 6,000 ahead now for G2. And Gen.G, they do still have options. They still have a very strong team fighting composition. They still have a 2-item Kalista with that Taric, that Cosmic Radiance, and actually a 2-item Azir now with the Rabadon's Death Cap and the Nash's Tooth. If they can find a good team fight, they can definitely still win out.
Well, that's the question. Can they find the good team fight, right? Because so far, G2 have done everything in their power to avoid it. They've only been going for these small skirmishes, for these small picks. And off the back of that Baron, G2 have been able to break some out of towers, but the good news for Gen.G is while they are at a deficit, they will get that opportunity. They still have that 4th Drake as a potential win condition, and it's 2.5 minutes away. Let's see if they can complete any additional items. Ideally, they want the Andries on Clid, but a Smite steal, I think, is going to be difficult. 3 levels down right now.
And the thing... Sorry.
I think that while he's done a great job of playing for his lanes in the early game, the fact that Jankos has been able to get a farm advantage, I think many European fans are going to be happy to see, because, again, he's been a big point of contention before the tournament, at the tournament, and can he play carry junglers? I think this is a great game that represents he definitely can play those carry junglers.
And teams definitely played around him at times as well, making sure that they are going to him to find the picks rather than making him come to them. It's worked out well. And I was going to say, the difficulty for Clid here is the more you fall behind in this situation, the more you're going to fall behind. Because G2 step up into your jungle, steal away all your camps, you're getting no farm. The farm is then funneled onto the Azir or the Kalista because they need their 3rd item. And the Lilia is just in such a difficult position because you're trying to get back to like a level 13, a level 14, or even to get your own Leandries. Unless the team is willing to give up some time and give up some gold to you in form of lane minions, you're not going to be finding anything else on the map.
So, the Drake is about spawning in 1 minute and 15 seconds. Let's use this very quick opportunity to set up some of the vision control. G2 have a control ward here, control ward here. It looks like that... I thought that they just used the Destiny there, but of course it's on cooldown. In any case, right now they have full control throughout the river. They have denied as much vision as possible from Gen.G from being able to access it, and they're going to keep pressure in both the mid and bot, and the TP is going to come down from the Twisted Fate as well. Notice how they use their pick power.
Fate's cool.
Wow, are they really committed to this?
Life! There's the Cosmic Radiance. Wonder dives onto the backline, and Life's already dead before the ult can even come down. They committed. The sleep comes down onto 2. Actually, 3 members of G2 as Caps now steps forward. Very low on mana, but gets it all back. I think he used a clarity there, has a stun card for BDD, who pops the stopwatch. Mickey's dived onto the backline. G2 looking for another one of their fights as they take down 2 early on. The Destiny looking for that flank position as Cap steps forward. Clid low enough to be hit with a single card. Teleport up towards the top lane as G2 continue their advance through the river. Ruler has nowhere to go. Wonder chases him down and slices him up with his legs. And now Rascal, the last one on the menu. G2 get the ace in the top lane.
And what an ambitious fight start from Gen.G. They had no control around the dragon, but they knew that they had to make that Hail Mary play. If they didn't get a good fight, there was no way they were going to get it, and they end up getting destroyed. G2 now with the ace. They may even look for another kill. Look at Wonder just denying the minion waves away. And it looks like G2 is going to try and secure themselves this Baron. Mickey taking quite a lot of damage there. They don't have the smite. Oh, of course, because the Nidalee's going to go get the Dragon Soul. But they're kind of spreading their resources thin.
Okay, G2 have overinvested towards this Baron. Nidalee went towards the Dragon. G2 back off it. Seeing that the teleport came out from BDD, they will get the Dragon, they'll stop, should be able to set up around the Baron once again.
So the good news for G2 is because what Wonder did, it actually denied Gen.G from getting anything else. So we'll come back to that in a second. Look at this engage from Gen.G, like this is quite an engage, right? Just throwing the support in to just basically be a martyr and say, okay, you start the fight for us. But Genji's then in that choke point that they can't commit to. We have to go back to live because have a look on your screen. You can see that Genji committing to the Baron.
Destiny spotted him out. Wonder on his way. Doesn't have the teleport to join the fray. Caps gets a stun card. You can see Rascal locked out. BDD flashes forward, lands onto Perks. There's a dazzle. The cleanse doesn't get him away, and there's one kill already for Genji. Mickey coming from the side as Wonder dives onto the BDD on the backline. 2 for 2 so far as Caps now going to step forward. Clit low, life low. Everyone on Genji's low. G2 take them all and 3 survive.
Wow, that fight initially looked quite good for Genji. They were able to shut down Perks almost immediately, but the gold gap is too big. Caps one-shot Ruler with a single card. Wonder and Mickey doing so much damage. Support Pantheon, more like carry Pantheon, as G2 are going to look to secure game 1 with a 19-4 kill score.
15 seconds left on life, but I don't think he's going to be able to defend versus the oncoming storm that is G2. It was a close game until it wasn't, Vedius. From 300 gold, the difference, to 12,000 at the end as G2 send a statement in game 1.
Strong performance from G2 here in game 1. The laning phase looked extremely good for Genji. Like really the 2v2 in the bot side, I felt like that they had full control. It really did feel like Ruler was just kind of run away with the game. They were able to secure themselves 3 Drakes, they got themselves 2 Rift Heralds, and then it was just a couple of plays here. That one pick onto Ruler down in the bot lane, that one pick onto Clid in the bot side jungle, and then it suddenly turned from 1 pick into, we just found 4 picks in the top side of the map, and we're just going to quickly convert that into a Baron. And even though Genji was able to find what looked like a great team fight around the Baron at the very end, as we mentioned, the gold gap was just so big, there was little that they could do about it.
They just slapped them with their wallets at the end of videos. But on Spotify, you can find the podcast Untold Stories, Top Moments from Worlds. Each episode will tell you a unique story from Worlds, and episodes will focus on such stories like the rise of Faker, the greatest match ever, how EU got on the map, and more. Listen free on Spotify as episode 1 drops on October 20th, with hosts Dash, Shox, and Latigris. We'll soon be back with more insight on Game 1 as G2 kick things off with a win.
Welcome back, everyone, to the State Farm Analyst Desk. G2 dealt the first blow in this best of 5 with a victory in Game 1. And it was kind of an odd one to watch, from going to kind of Genji taking the wheel into G2 completely taking it over and swerving it into victory. So let's look at the draft specifically. And Yumaro, something you brought up in the green room was that it seemed like both teams had left certain things open that maybe with a lot of preparation or with a plan, you wouldn't always leave open versus these teams.
Like, honestly, if I'm in Genji's shoes, I'm thinking I want to have a bot side game, and you're giving the enemy the 3 champions that can dominate the map and isolate things and do what G2 is good at, which is Camille, Nidalee, Twisted Fate. I think everyone tweeted the same, Exodia draft, Exodia draft, Exodia draft. The thing I liked on Genji's side was the Kalista, but then you have a full magic damage composition that kind of makes it iffy. So it's just Exodia against OK.
I mean, I think it's also banking on kind of Ruler, and that's so much of what the story was about for Genji. And you brought up, well, it was permaban in the LCK. It was also permaban actually in the group stage. He never got his hands on it. And for G2 sides, probably, well, if we can beat them when they get the Kalista, that gives us some more options in the future drafts.
And that's what you do in best of 5s, right? You test the water first. So they left open Kalista, something the Ruler's really good at, but the answer is just so good. You have a Prio jungle, which I think Nidalee and Lilia is much better because you have the TF for the setup. Lilia has an Azir. It's not something that you can 2v2 much with. And then, yes, they did fumble a little bit in the top side, but I think G2 with the globals just kind of shut down Ruler. He can never push bot to the point where he could take plates in their face because there's just too many threats from the side of G2 that can just come into the bot lane and just basically kill him.
So let's look at kind of the first point of action which happened in the game, which happened in the top lane, where we find the 2v2 going in Genji's favor.
Yeah, and I think this was a good play from G2. You know, Caps, we know he wants to get out of the lane, he wants to roam around. He does drop mid-wave, but BDD does have the TP to respond, and I think this was, I want to say, a little bit lucky from the side of G2. If the Volibear E came down a second later, I think it would be a 2 for 0, but it was a play that didn't go in favor of G2. They did manage to kill Caps in the end, and it was 2 kills, but I think the overall play in general was when Rascal respawns, he TPs to mid, pushes in the wave that was bad for BDD initially, crashed on the tower, and this is what I like to see. This is what I like to see from Genji. I think this was the last play they made was actually really beneficial for them because it denied Caps a wave, and it got them 2 kills.
And looking back at the game, you know, they were ahead. They were in a position where they had 3 dragons, and in general, this game looked like G2 would just sweep. I mean, Gen.G would just sweep it because of those 3 dragons. But right before the situation, the chaos started to ensue. Some of that chaos we saw both from Gen.G and G2 in the group stages.
That it did, and we know that G2 has not had a high priority on those drakes in general, and you might think, well, that's a problem, but what they put against that is then their global compositions and the global possibilities that they have. How important is that in this game?
Yeah, I think 2 things they lose from doing all these globals. First thing they lose is the dragons. The second thing they lost later on was the mid tower, because Caps is always roaming, and they're aware of these things happening. Like, obviously they traded the Herald, they lost the mid tower, but the fact they can make these plays, this is what you have to do with this comp. If you're playing TF Pantheon, you don't want to just let the game snowball to the point where it's 25 minutes and you're even versus an Azir, right? Or an Kalista who's been like pushing in your bottle game. You want to snowball the game, you want to get things rolling. Ignore the drakes, focus on gold. I think gold is the most important thing when you're playing global comps.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the only reason they go back into the game, because they kept catching Clids. I think they're never going to see this draft again in this best of 5. TF is going to be permabanned or picked.
It should absolutely be. Let's take a look at G2's Mercedes drive to victory, which was the collapse on the top lane before Baron, and I think that even before that, we saw that they were taking the wheel, and this kind of solidified it.
Yeah, the key thing that isn't shown here as well is just the fact that Drake is 1 minute away from spawning, and that's the Drake that they want to fight on. Clid gets, of course, caught out, and Twisted Fate is also out and about. You have the final shot here from the Jhin to one-shot BDD here. Boom, kablow, cinematics. It's like a Hans Zimmer movie. We just need to add some music there. Boom.
Okay. Anyway, so let's look forward now. And I think this is so interesting because we have a team which has the clear identity of playing through the bot lane, high priority on the early drakes, on the leads in lane, up against a team who does not care about any of those things. They don't care if they sack their mid lane, they don't care if they sack the tower, and if they lose the early drakes, because they're going to put the pedal to the metal at times in the game when they see fit and then take over. That is so interesting. And of course, because Gen.G is on the losing side, how do you think they're going to react to that?
I think the key thing is just to make sure that they have a mid-jungle that actually synergizes. Like Lilia and Azi together, they're not good. They need to have an 80 jungle together with BDD because his champion pool is compact. Remove the Camille, because when Ornn and Renekton is banned, Camille gets too much value. Don't ban Ornn, ban Camille, deny any topside action, make it a bot-side focused game.
Yeah, I think having synergies between the solo lanes and the jungle is really important. Lilia, Azir, Volibear, there's no synergy there at all. They're all AP. When they picked Volibear, Lilia, I was kind of confused what they were going to pick mid, and I think the other thing is just deny the globals. Try to deny as much playmaking from G2 as you can, because Gen.G want to play slow, they want to get the drakes, they want to play for plates in this game specifically, whereas G2 have just way too much playmaking to be able to do that.
Okay, easy there. Just deny the globals as far as you can and make sure you have synergy between the lanes. After the break, we've got more G2 versus Gen.G. Don't go anywhere.
We cannot go.
Yeah, back off.
I'll flash,
I can kill you.
Should I mind flash on us?
I'm bad. It's on this one. It's really bad. Actually, it's fine. It's actually fine. It's actually fine. It's actually
I'll
fine.
attack the Drake, yeah.
Just try to leave. Just try to leave.
Wait, Ashe was flashing, by the way.
It's just run. I can fight. Can I minting? No flash. No flash. No flash.
I'm behind him. If you just jump out, I'm behind him. I'm TPing.
Let's run.
I'm gonna come behind him.
Try to run.
Who's no flash? I shouldn't have flash.
Probably all of them.
I shouldn't have flash.
Okay, Bard has no flash now, guys.
Java no flash.
Okay, Java,
Can I go on soon?
They are tipping behind me. I think
Did you fight this?
No, you should run if you can. That's Ezreal TP.
Okay, nice.
Both still up. Oh, that's no way.
There's just no way to leave, right? Good job.
Oh, special in the world.
We just heard G2's comms from their game against Suning in the Sounds of the Game presented by Bose, and we're about to get into the second game of this best of 5 between G2 and Gen.G. G2, well, it was a close early game. I think Gen.G, getting those first 3 dragons would have felt that they were in a really good position, and then G2 were able to find picks constantly around side lanes and just take the game away from Gen.G.
Yeah, what I think is really interesting is
I read a great tweet from Kelsey where she talked a lot about how G2's kind of doing what they have a habit of doing, of kind of defying the meta, where it's like, well, you don't have to fight for every Drake. You don't have to actually contest and go for all these team fights. You can actually just wait and look for these picks and play towards this like global comp. And I think it was very well done by G2. When we think back to G2 of last year, playing side lanes, strong mid game, that was actually what they were very well known for. Their early game has always kind of been debatably very bad. And I think that they kind of, they just mitigated that weakness, and I think that they did a great job in the mid-game, so we'll see how things change in Game 2. We heard from Yamato in the post-game talk about how they wanted to see the Ornn ban removed and actually replaced with a Camille, but it looks like that they're going to keep to what they know for the time being, with Syndra and Ornn being taken off the board, and G2 looking to do the same with their Set and Lucian.
Same bans on both sides so far, with the Graves being banned away here by Gen G. We'll see if G2 decide to switch things up. If they don't, Renekton will be removed, and maybe we have the start of a run back instead. Rascal says, anything you can do, I can do better. Okay. As he locks in the Camille.
Cool. I like this response from Gen G. They're saying, listen, the bans were the problem, the picks were. So let's get ourselves the Camille. If you're going to take all these off the board, you would imagine that, excuse me, G2 is going to look to respond with the volley bed later on in the draft, but they could still get themselves the Twisted Fate and the Nidalee if they wanted to. Still very powerful champions, a very strong combo. They're actually going to lock in the Lilia though. Okay, we did see a Lilia from Jankos in the group stages. The question is, what are they going to pair up with it? Will we see an AD mid laner, or will we see the Twisted Fate once again for G2?
Right now, having a little bit of a think, the Shen will come in.
Okay.
So the expectation here is that Wunder will pilot that in the top lane. However, support Shen is a thing, and Mickey is the sort of player that would bring out support Shen. So there is a bit of flexibility in this pick. Of course, it does work well into the Camille. You can block a lot of her damage by putting down your Spirit's Refuge, and there is the Nidalee answer from Clid on Gen G. Whoa, okay.
Wait.
This is
Wait a minute.
G2's come from the first game.
Yeah, but this is also considered to be a very powerful draft on the current patch. Oh, it will be really funny if Gen G's like, wait a minute, your comp? My comp. They're going to lock in the Twisted Fate, all right. Gen G now get to showcase, well, anything you can do, we can do better. So let's have a look and see how G2 respond, because, yeah, they're going to give up the Nidalee, they're going to give up the Twisted Fate. Of course, G2 do have the Shen to try and match some of the global pressure. The question is, will they go for a Galio here? They'll be lacking a little bit in terms of damage. Note, they're going to match it with the Sylas. We saw this come out from Knight yesterday on Top Esports when he played up against Fnatic. You can steal away that ultimate at level 6. You can look to try and match some of the Twisted Fate roams. I do think that right now he doesn't have the best ultimates to steal. Camille not that bad, but Nidalee really not that helpful. Yep. So we'll see how Gen G round out their comp and if there are any more valuable picks that Caps can look to take away.
And the question is where we go in terms of AD carries. With the Kalista getting banned away, Gen G last time took away the Ashe, took away the Senna. But this time they will say, well, we don't want Mickey going onto his Pantheon and having that ability to get to a side lane as quickly as he could with the Grand Starfall. And I wonder if Ashe is going to be high on the list here for G2, yet to be banned away.
I feel like Ezreal might be slightly higher on the priority list. When you have this comp from Gen G, you can see how easy it is to be able to look for picks, attack that bot side of the map, especially if Gen G can get themselves a strong 2 versus 2. And I think that Perk's Ezreal kind of makes the most sense in terms of being able to play safe, be able to play weak side, play a little bit more defensively. But if they feel that the Shen is a strong enough protection, they may just stick to what they know. They're going to go for the Jhin once more.
Gives you that little bit more range when you want to get into the fights. The Curtain Call can help pick people off, and we already saw the combination between the Deadly Flourish and any damage from anyone else on your team, just locking someone up from long range. However, Gen G here, I'd love an Ashe. Like an arrow into a Destiny, into a gold card, into a Hexagon Ultimatum, like that is feeling so strong, but instead they are looking towards the Ezreal. A little bit more safety, as you said. In the end,
don't talk about it until it gets locked in, Medic. Like, Ruler is known, he played a lot of both Ashe and Ezreal during the regular season of the LCK. Both are big comfort picks for him, and I think that he was pretty happy to go either or. I think Gen G wanted a little bit more pick potential in their composition. We saw it from the Jhin from G2 last game. Now we're going to get to see it with the Ashe Arrow and the Tahm Kench. So when you kind of look at the team fight power, not the strongest of Gen G, the Nidalee and Twisted Fate become a little bit harder to execute later on into the game. Ooh, and I was going to say the problem is they don't really have a strong frontline or engage, but this is where I think the Leona is exceptionally valuable. Going to give Gen G a lot more agency in the bot lane 2 versus 2. and it also makes it much easier to play through this lane as well. So G2 going to try and respond by offering that protection with the Tahm Kench, it looks like. So they will have the Tahm Kench and Shen to at least face check for G2 when looking to contest and challenge some of these neutral objectives, but they don't really have a reliable engage tool. Perhaps the Sylas is able to steal away something like the Leona ultimate, maybe the Ashe ultimate as well. Maybe if the Sylas gets into melee range as the Shen come on top, they can use that as an opportunity. Maybe they have to try and use a pick, but I think that Gen G, in terms of their ability to actually start fights, come the mid-game, look for picks across the map, they have a very well-rounded and strong comp to be able to do that. So I'm excited. I think that Gen G already demonstrated that they can get big advantages in the laning phase against a team like G2 who's just in the mid-game where they kind of got picked apart. But with a comp like this, they can now answer and they can be the ones to be very aggressive at come the mid-game. And I'm excited to see if they're able to do it up against G2 who did it so well in Game 1.
And Gen G needs to show us just that little bit more map play in this game. It can't all come down to team fights, although they do have a relatively strong team fighting composition as well. G2, on the other hand, a little bit mix and match for this team. Picking the Sylas to make sure you don't answer the Twisted Fate. You don't have that sort of super sustained damage in a fight from something like an Ezreal or an Ashe. You have some ability to lock down, but also some ability to disengage. It doesn't feel as cohesive a composition as the one in Game 1.
Well, I think the early game will be a little bit slower, but we'll have to wait and see. I definitely agree with you. The composition is not quite as obvious as compared to Game 1, but I think that the game plan is to try and mitigate a lot of the cross-map plays that Gen G is looking to try and set up. A strong 2 versus 2 on the bot side of the map with the Jhin and the Tahm Kench. So we'll have to wait and see what they're able to pull off the back of this. I think that there was a lot of criticism towards Jankos' spears last game.
Yeah, he missed quite a few.
But I still think that he played very well. I think that one of the biggest things that I saw from Jankos that was a departure from the group stage was that he tried to save lanes that fell apart in the early game. So like we think about that level 1 flash, in the group stages what Jankos would do is he would path to try and help them get through what is now a very difficult lane matchup. But this time he didn't. He abandoned his bot lane and he said, it's fine, I'm going to keep playing cross map on the other side of the map. And he focused on himself rather than on his team. And I think that for a player like Jankos, it's a very big deal because ever since he's been on this G2 roster, he's been very much playing towards his laners rather than playing for himself. So that is what I think was a big evolution and a big standout for him. We'll see if he can do the same thing again on the Lilia, because now he's in the counter matchup. Now he's going up against Clid on the Nidalee. This again is a big comfort pick for him and something that he can be very selfish on. He can use some of the priority that he has in his lanes to go into Jankos' jungle, steal away a lot of those camps and be as obnoxious as Jankos was in the previous game.
You have to remember the last 2 times Clid and Jankos met, it was Jankos who came out on top 3-1 in Worlds semi-finals last year against SKT and 3-2 at MSI as well. So Clid will want a little bit of revenge. G2 setting up something down towards the bottom lane here. Looks like Mickey is trying to be a tasty catfish, a little bit of bait perhaps as G2 step all the way around. Life and Ruler have pushed forward just a little bit. Now there is a small, narrow window you can walk up through the bottom lane here and wonder, will have the taunt lifespan procced on with that auto attack. There's the slow, flashes away from the deadly flourish.
Strong level 1 from G2, already getting the flash out from life. They were able to do this in Game 1, and they were able to burn Rascal's flash, but of course the immediate response from Clid is to get a bit of vision up towards the top side. Rascal's also there to assist him. They do have this red ward from G2 to spot that one up. And they're like, no. No buffs will be stolen today. And they're going to look to try and deny some vision. Wonder has to be careful though, because you can see that Rascal lying in wait in that tri-brush.
Looks like Clid is going to start unassisted on his blue buff. Of course, Nidalee with the spear does get a big burst of damage to start off that buff. And it's interesting to me that Jankos has decided to start blue himself. Often on Lilia, especially when I play with Ender, he likes to go for the Razor Beaks because you get so much out of clearing those multi-minion camps from your jungle talisman. You get all of that healing, you can just sweep them away. And it keeps you very healthy throughout the jungle, but Jankos here opting to be assisted by his bottom lane, meaning that he can work his way towards that top side of the map.
I am interested to see... Ooh, Ruler.
Life has no flash, remember? He's going to dive in. Of course, no Shield of Daybreak, no stun on the Leona, only the Zenith Blade at level 1.
So we can see a bit of trading in the bot side, not that surprising. Wonder also not getting the better of Rascal at this level 1 point. Not really that surprising because of how you can use the Camille W to be obnoxious. Rascal has the stun. Oh, but another engaged bot lane.
Life ignited. Mickey looking for the acquired taste. Life is ticking down, but he will be able to survive. Mickey ticking away as well. Perks does have heal in this matchup. Here's Jankos on his way down as well, and Life, of course, has no flash. There's the heal. They try and get Life out, but watch out, eat Life. Perks, Zenith bladed on. Life survives. Jankos unable to take the kill. That's a double for Ruler in the bottom lane, in the top lane. Rascal kills Wonder. Wonder kills him in response. Ruler will fall to Jankos, but what an incredible play from Gen G.
Everything comes together for the bot lane of Gen G, and huge props to Life there in the last second, diving on top of Perks to create a gap between him and Ruler, actually stunning Perks up. He was still only level 1, and that was the biggest problem for G2 in that situation. Not having the level 2, not having that additional health, those additional stats, anything really put them behind and allowed the bot lane to come through. Let's have a look at this Axe replay from Rascal, and remember that he did get level 2 first. As the bot lane action was taking off, he is able to get the stun, lands it onto Wonder, and then he just commits to the fight. Is able to get good damage down. Wonder still only level 1. And then Wonder just goes back. He's trying to get that level 2 mark. Oh, he goes for the all-in, and then of course the shield comes through. Wonder very quickly realizes, I don't have the damage for this. Oh, and then the flash underneath the tower. Still, definitely a worthwhile kill up there for Rascal. But we didn't get a replay of the bot line fight, unfortunately, and I really want to give credit to Life there, considering he didn't have flash. It should have been an easy kill for G2 in the bot side of the map, but once again, we're seeing Ruler and Life kind of come out ahead in the 2 versus 2. If it wasn't for Jankos, that bot lane matchup could have been a lot worse, but now there's no summoners anywhere. Only mid laners have their flashes and TPs up Medic. That could mean even more action towards the bot side of the map.
Clid has his flash as well, and Wonder is trading here in the top lane once again. Rascal looking for the knockup. There it is. Wonder forced back. Jankos on his way. Rascal, remember, he's got no flash. He's got no hook shot. And the chase is on. Watch out as Jankos dives forward. Teleport coming in. Jankos looking for the kill, but can't quite get Rascal. In the end, he gets him. Blossoming Blows will get the kill. BDD chasing with the TP. Has a stun guard locked in. Will flash forward. And Jankos goes down for his trade, but Caps is having none of this. He wants a little bit more of an action. BDD, no flash, no way to get away. Is Wonder coming in as well? There's the taunt alongside the stun. BDD falls.
Whew. Okay, so a lot more action in this early game compared to last game, Medic. Already 4 kills on the board for both sides, and well, where do I even begin when it comes to breaking that down? So basically what happened is Clid was able to get double scuttle. That's important to note because right now he's been taking advantage of the fact that Jankos went for early ganks. He then looks at the top side of the map because Rascal has a pushing wave in and he wants to try and get a pick onto Wonder, but Jankos is there to counteract Rascal, who didn't have flash. Then BDD TPs in to actually mitigate or like turn the fight in their favor, but BDD is forced to use the flash because Jankos, keeping the passive stacked, uses that movement speed to just stay out of BDD's range. This, because he commits the flash, means that Wonder can come down, Caps can also collapse, and it ends up being a kill. He's going to sit on 2 rings. Why about Dark Seal? Dark Seal. Of course, they don't stack in terms of the stacks, but you do get that additional healing off the back of it, so it's still valuable to stack it up. Meanwhile, Wonder is kind of the one that's lost the most in all of this, because there was a huge wave that just crashed into the top lane tower. You can see that he's 10 CS down, but also a level down. And his level 6 is going to be heavily delayed. Meanwhile, BDD has just hit level 6. He's roaming bot, and he's looking for a gank.
Caps looking to try and join them, but he can't get in there in time. Mickey already down as Ruler takes the kill. BDD will fall as well. Caps didn't steal away the Destiny. Now, Ruler is getting chased down just a little bit. Life can look for the re-engage. 6-second cooldown on that stun.
But it ends up being a 1-for-1, and this time it's BDD who dies in exchange for Mickey. In terms of experience, gold, everything, much more worth for G2, because you're then going to give Caps the opportunity to push that wave in. He's then going to look for a roam himself, very common Caps play. Let's see if he can actually pull off a gank here. 3v3 in the bot side, more action, Medic.
He has the hijack. Perks trying to step forward, cleared in the right place to pounce. Out of the jungle, can come in. Enchanted Crystal Arrow's been stolen away, and they've already locked up Ruler, and now Cleared is next on the menu. The arrow's still available here for Caps if he wants to land the stun. Gets it immediately. Swell Seed's going to follow it up, but no level 6 yet for Jankos. The dive is available, but G2 decide against it for the moment. They are distracted.
I don't think they do, Medic.
By the minions. Life able to dodge to the side, but the tongue lash comes out onto Clid, who gets caught with the abduct. Life underneath the tower, still getting chased down here by Caps, who decides he doesn't need to sacrifice his life for the kill.
Wow, okay, so that's what Caps then uses his priority for, to punish Gen G as they try to push in that wave and get the wave to bounce back. This is why the BDD death was so impactful, and Caps utilizes it well. BDD tried to look for a roam up towards the top lane. He will be able to get a bit of farm himself. But wow, a lot of kills happening in this early game, and
You know, I was talking about at the beginning of this game how Jankos went much more towards focusing for himself, but this game, he's all about the ganks. He's really trying to punish the fact that so many summoner spells are being used, but also he's trying to counter-gank a lot of what is happening on the map, and I respect BDD utilizing that ultimate the moment he hits level 6, but that one punish ends up working out so much better for G2.
Have a look at this from Caps' point of view. You can see consistently landing the stuns there onto Ruler, has that arrow stolen away, and is able to catch onto Clid at point-blank range.
Yeah, good patience there, and they had the wave in a really good spot too, because they only had to clear a few more minions out to be able to commit to this play, and then a good set of CC is able to come through. They're able to get that initial kill. They wanted a little bit more, but then Caps realizes, my W still has a 9-second cooldown, probably not worth diving at this point.
And the important thing about that for G2 as well is, remember, Ruler got such a sizable advantage early on. He was 2 kills up as Rascal is taunted Wonder diving underneath the tower. But Ruler was in such a strong position. Now Perks has been able to get some of that gold back. He's got a CS lead. He's got himself a kill. Yes, he's still behind in the pure 2v2, but he is not being forced underneath his tower regularly. You can see, in fact, Life has decided to come up here to join the rest of Gen G on the Rift Herald. Clid diving in. Jankos just able to survive. Gets hit with a final spear as Clid takes him down. And a little bit greedy there from G2 as Gen G had set up around this Rift Herald.
Yeah, really good punish from Clid and BDD there. I think BDD had Ghost on his
Spellbook?
Spellbook, yeah. And I think that he used that to actually close the gap between him and Jankos, and they were able to get the punish. Of course, in this situation, what we saw last game was G2 look to try and make a cross-map play happen, so they would have either looked to try and make a dive happen bot, or perhaps even go for a Drake, but they instead tried to contest, and this is the best case scenario for Gen G, because now they can set up for the Drake themselves. They're going to be able to steal away some of the camps from Jankos, and Clid now putting himself in the position that Jankos was in Game 1 with a huge CS advantage as the mid laners look to trade.
Yeah, Caps just jumping forward onto BDD. The Kingslayer, of course, heals you up more the lower you are as Life dives in, but good devour from Mickey will keep Perks safe for the moment. And very even game here, Vedius. 400 gold between the two teams, 6 kills to 7 at the 9.5 minute mark, and we're starting to see those first items on their way. Looks like it's going to be a Blade of the Ruined King possibly for Ruler in this game on the Ashe, work his way through the Shen. Of course, Silas gets pretty tanky as well, depending on how he decides to build.
It's pretty interesting there how they actually gave a lot of the mid lane farm over to Jankos, as it was Caps threatening the enemy rafters. You can see that with Clid on the bot side of the map and with Destiny coming up, this is a situation where Gen G is definitely looking to set up for this Drake. They're going to drop a couple wards over the wall. BDD has just looked to reset. His TP will be up relatively soon, as many G2 members are going to reset. Ooh, the Storm Rays are already coming through for Perks. Definitely a big item purchase, going to give him a very potent early game spike. But with the push in bot, I think Gen G are going to have the priority on this objective, and they may look to just start this one off. Let's see how G2 respond. Wonder has TP and ultimate. Rascal is the same. Will they contest?
Jankos will look for a swirl seed. Chucks it out, misses Life and Ruler straight through the uprights, and Clid should just be able to take this dragon. Jankos stepping forward, but unable to get there in time. And this is kind of the story of G2 games. We talked about it a little bit in Game 1, Vedius, but G2 really don't go for those objectives. It's always Gen G going for the objectives, and G2 just don't like the early dragons at all as they look for a fight down here towards the bottom lane, but can't find the connection onto Ruler.
Oh. There are those Drake stats that you were talking about, Medic.
I'll be honest, the screen wasn't responding to my touch. I was wondering whether I'd lost feeling in my fingers.
Right, talk us through the stats, Medic.
So as you can see, G2, first dragon percentage, the FD at the top. Only 30% of the time does G2 go for the first dragon, whereas Gen G much more often go for that first Drake. G2 get about half the dragons in all of their games. Gen G get about 63%, about 2/3. And Barons, G2 actually one of the worst Baron taking teams at Worlds groups. Whereas Gen G consistently go for them, and now Gen G look for a fight in the mid lane, but Mickey is here and Perks is here, and Clid is no longer. He's gone back to the fountain. BDD tries to flash away, but there's no escape. The Solar Flare! Stopwatch from BDD underneath the tower. Perks looking for the fourth shot. Will get it. Rascal comes in from the side. The arrow's going to land from downtown as well. Solar Flare stolen away there by Caps as Life looks for the re-engage. Ruler stepping forward. There's a stun. And now Ruler's been put to sleep. Underneath the tower he is dozing off, and Jankos will happily accept that kill. Rascal able to survive as 2 players from G2 go down, but they managed to pick up 4.
Wow. So, everyone in the mid lane here, Medic. Wow, what a crazy collapse and crazy team fight that G2 are able to come out on top of. I believe that was 4 kills for 2 at the very end of it. Like, I'm going to need a replay to back that one out because where do we even start? So, initially, this is BDD and Clid looking to get a gank onto Caps. It looks like these overextended, but Shen ultimate plus the Tahm Kench ultimate actually allows G2 to collapse first. This is where they overcommit. A really nice stopwatch going to come through from BDD here as Wonder flashes underneath the tower, and then Life tries to get the stun. But Rascal's already making his way down. The Ash arrow comes through, and at this point, I think G2 could have just stopped and backed off, but in typical G2 fashion, always actually Life that flashes in to try and get the re-engage. And perhaps that was a little overzealous because he then baits his AD carry in. And it allows G2 to get a couple more kills. Good ultimate at the very end coming out from Rascal to lock Wonder underneath the tower. But it's G2 that's coming out ahead in the kills.
It's Gen G looking for the pick. Rascal trading onto Perks here in the bottom lane. Mickey actually had to flash forward. Deadly Flourish does not connect the Swell Seed. It was wide as well. Curtain calls have been brought down, but the trigonometry not working in Perks' favor as he couldn't quite find the angle. Yanko's still on the chase. Hook shots should just allow Rascal to escape.
Yanko's ultimate also still on cooldown. Wonder, I think he's going to die here.
4v1. It's not a fair fight as Wonder's locked underneath this top lane tower, puts down the Spirit's Refuge. Now he's going to try and get away. Goes in with the taunt, lands it onto BDD. Wonder locked up with the Solar Flare, and the kill goes over to Clid.
Wow, so he actually decides to try and taunt BDD. I think he wanted BDD to get tower aggro, but he actually didn't end up getting it. Meanwhile, Rascal dies on the bot side of the map. So I have a couple questions. The first one is I am surprised Wonder decided to stay underneath that tower. Credit to him for being able to clear out that wave and buy a little bit more time. Perhaps he realized that there was no way that he was getting out of that situation, so instead he just wanted to stall for as long as he could. Maybe he thought he could outplay it. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. But my other question is what exactly happens bot lane, and we're going to get a replay to find out. Rascal actually just tries to base underneath his tower, and he has no way to get out. Yanko's tanking up the tower to allow Caps to deal the damage, and they're able to trade 1-for-1 in the end. G2 don't get that bot tower, but it is overall one tower for one on either side. G2, for now, sitting with the gold lead, but we're getting a very different game compared to what we had in Game 1.
It's a lot more chaotic, Vedi, as we are 21 kills at 15 minutes. Both teams taking equal amounts of plates, and one of the number I have to highlight is the fact that Caps obviously last week went on a website, got onto the nearest library and said, hey, I want a library card because I need to book out this Medjai Soul Stealer. 14 chapters are written in it so far. It's got 11 more to go before that's fully stacked up.
How long have you had that one in the books for?
I've been working on it a while, Vedi. Been working on it a while.
So, it's great that you brought up the mid laners because we need to contrast what BDD and Caps have kind of brought into this game. I think what's really interesting is that there's been a really big debate, I think, around BDD and Caps, especially prior to the tournament. Many were saying that, like, you should rate a BDD higher than Caps, you should rate Caps higher than BDD, but I think that they've just been very different players and they're often very difficult to compare. I think what's great about BDD is that he's been known as a very lane-dominant mid laner. I think that he's very consistent and very reliable, whereas Caps is all about roaming. He doesn't care that much about 1 versus 1. He's much more about playing for his team, and like you can already see how often G2 likes to play through him, whereas BDD, he's a little bit more isolated. Just look at the difference in the jungle proximity and how much more resources Caps gets as a player, and you can also see it in the CSD. BDD is much more about the lane, whereas Caps just kind of abandons farm in order to play around the map, and I think that they've been very difficult to compare, but in this situation, BDD's taken on the responsibility of trying to roam around the map a lot more, and he's actually been punished pretty consistently. There was that one play down towards the bot side of the map where he ended up getting collapsed upon. There was that one play in the mid where he was working with Clid, but it was G2 that do what they have to do, and they immediately collapsed onto Caps to keep him safe and actually turn the play in their favor. And so far on this Twisted Fate, he hasn't been able to find huge early game advantages for Gen G, but we're entering the mid game now, and this is really where this Camille Nidalee Twisted Fate combo comes online, and we'll get to see how Gen G utilize it, because this is where G2 is able to punish Gen G so heavily in Game 1.
Yeah, as soon as you start to get those mid lane towers down, as soon as you make longer lanes in the top and bottom lane, you have so much more opportunity to get in behind your opponents, to use that destiny, to use the mobility of Nidalee through the jungle, and that's what Gen G will be looking to do. Jankos is going to equalize the Dragon score here. The Ocean Drake goes down. It's another Infernal Soul, Vedi. Today is the day of Infernals, it would seem, as that will be the Dragon stacking up. But with both teams only at 1 at the 16-minute mark, it's a long way away before we get towards that Soul point.
So we can see a lot of major items now coming through as well. You already talked about the Magi Eyes for Caps, but he's now completed the Hextech GLP. We've got the Rod of Ages. Trinity Force is a big purchase for Rascal as well, as he hits level 11. And Wonder also already completed the Titanic Hydra a little bit earlier on, but let's see what he goes back to buy. The important thing is level 11 for Wonder, level 11, or 12 rather, for Caps. Having 2 points in those ultimates is extremely valuable, specifically for the cooldown. The ability to use it more often, the additional shielding that Wonder's going to be able to provide, the lower cooldown and more regularly that Caps is going to be able to steal those ultimates, but the same can be said for BDD. He has his ultimate up a lot more often, which means those picks a little bit more often, and let's see where they look to make the plays. Caps has TP, he's currently in the bot side of the map. There's a bit of grouping up in the mid lane for both teams. But it looks like with no major objective, Gen.G right now are just doing what they can to hold the line and protect this mid-tier 1.
And they'll be able to do it. Still was unfazed by the fact the Rift Herald was used there just a little bit earlier. Rascal working his way down here. Now, he won't be spotted out by too many wards. I think there's one just around where the Razorbeaks would be, but already they're looking for perks. The Solar Flare comes down. Mickey still has the Devour here. Cleared with a spear from long range. Teleport coming in from G2 as they try and join the fray. That's Destiny from BDD. Life a little bit overextended. The rest of his team not there to help him. Life shut down by the Jin. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the fourth finds its mark. Clid goes golden, but he goes down as well. Caps is unstoppable, and G2 collapse on the play from Gen.G.
Caps with the great predict on the flash from Clid, uses his Q over the wall so that when Clid flashes over, Caps is actually able to get the execute. He still has the Ash Arrow. He's looking for a pick, and he's found Rascal.
What is that damage from the Kingslayer and the arrow? Rascal locked out of the hook shot. Won't go down as a chain lash. Will not follow him over the wall, but G2 already coming up trumps in this game. There's the time Ken's trying to get onto a Ruler who uses the blast cone to escape the mid lane tower falls. And it was just even gold a moment ago, Betty, and now G2 having 2,500 gold advantage.
And it's a situation where Gen.G is
Rascal's going for the flank. Who's he looking for? It's got to be Perks. Perks still has the flash, though. The sleep goes down, and Rascal hookshot, wall dives, and dies to Jankos. The red smite, blue smite doing his work there. As Jankos gets the kill. Now they're still on the chase. BDD has to flash away. Caps with 22 stacks just needs to land. A single abducted, he dives underneath the tower, and Clint is already down. Devour will spit Caps out, and Wonder tanking up the flurry of arrows that comes out of the Ash. G2 are going to turn and burn. Baron not even up yet.
Wow. I can't believe G2 are just consistently getting these kills, and like, I just have to raise question marks around what Gen.G is trying to do here. Last game, we saw how you use this Twisted Fate combo. You look for... This is just trying to force a fight in the mid lane. Like, they're going for a 5 versus 5 here. TPs are up, Shen ultimate is up, and, like, BDD gets here late, but, like, the Camille isn't even in the fight yet, and they tried to commit so hard. And here's that predict from Caps over the wall, uses the Q, gets the predict, and is able to find that execute. But, like... This isn't how you use this comp. You can't just try and force the 5v5 like that, because especially at this point in the game, we just talked about all those items that came through for G2. I felt like that they were just in a much stronger position. You need to be trying to play through the Camille on a side lane, trying to look for these targets or stragglers that are caught out of position, trying to find these collapses, maybe even try to collapse on the Shen, but just trying to force that mid 5v5, I feel like it was never really going to pan out in your favor, and the execution just kind of fell apart. So G2 just kind of took the free fight. They were able to come out on top, and Caps is just smurfing right now. Yep. He is just kind of playing with his food on this Silas.
Having an absolutely stellar world so far as Caps. BDD has been struggling, I think we have to say. Hasn't been able to have the impact in this matchup specifically, yeah. Hasn't been able to have the impact that he would like on these games. They look to Ruler once again. 3-3-1. Averages over a third of his team's damage in every single game, has 2 items here. And if anyone's going to be able to carry them out of this hole, it is the guy that has been with this team the longest. Remember, Ruler, a world champion, Vedius, was with Samsung, who changed to Gen.G in 2017 when they beat G2 in the group stage. Ruler has been here a long, long time, and a lot of people consider him up there amongst the best AD carries in the world.
For sure. Definitely, and I mean, like, we only have to look at his laning phase, and we saw how talented of a player Ruler is. Like, some of the situations that he was able to turn in his favor was just so well done. But here comes the sleep now from Jankos. Instant cleanse from Ruler.
Where did that come from?
Where did that?
Oh, Mikaos. Clid has Mikaos.
Oh, Clid. Okay,
yeah.
okay. I thought it was life. Yeah, both.
Yeah, we both looked at life, and then we looked for the QSS. And it's like, oh.
Yeah. All right, Caps. Now towards the bot side of the map. G2 going to look to secure the first Infernal of the game. Gen.G now towards the top side, and this is a situation where they could look for a pick onto Wonder. Doesn't have flash, but BDD currently in the mid lane, so it looks like he's going to be safe for now.
But if you're Gen G, you actually get into a really tricky spot here. Because the hope would be that you can kind of split the map up, you can have Rascal pushing in the side lane, and then someone can answer Caps' pressure. But you can't right now. Like, BDD is so far behind Caps that if he ever oversteps, he's just going to get deleted. And you can see they're having to move life down towards this bottom lane as well, which leaves you undermanned on the rest of the map. Now Caps with the Destiny can join any fight he wants. His teleport is almost off cooldown as well. It becomes so hard for Gen G to pull around the map and find these picks they were looking for.
I mean, the terrifying thing about this comp, right? Like, we haven't even spoken about Mickey, but we did see how he used his ultimate to actually join the mid lane fight. And one of the cool things, and I think one of the things we don't really appreciate, is while Gen G want to try and look for picks, it's actually very difficult because of things like this, the ability to collapse very quickly, and for G2 to actually look for these same responses. So every time Gen G try to attack a side lane, G2 can actually collapse very fast.
So here's the thing, Caps doesn't have TP, it's just come off cooldown. Mickey has to go back beneath the tower. You can see Caps was walking down through that bottom lane. Destiny was popped by BDD to get to that fight, but I wonder perhaps if Gen G had a small moment, a small opportunity there to try and jump on G2.
Thinking more about it, like, I'm understanding this comp a lot more from G2, and like, I can kind of understand a little bit more why Gen G tried to force that fight in the mid lane, because, like, how do you attack the side lane? Like, there's a Shen ultimate, and there's a Tahm Kench ultimate, and Caps can just steal Destiny too. Yeah. So, like, you try to catch a pick, 3 people on a side lane. Well, G2 can have 4. And, like, you might just have to force yourself into these awkward fights, because when you want to utilize the strength of your composition, I think it heavily gets mitigated. So, you know, in the draft phase, we were kind of like trying to figure out what the goal of G2's comp was, but when we think about it a little bit more, I think actually the whole purpose of it is to shut down this Camille, Nidalee, Twisted Fate combo, and so far they've done a great job. And as you say, Caps is now strong enough where he can just go for this 1v1.
Flashes in with the Hexa Ultimatum, is going to lock Rascal down in the cage. Counter used as Wonder comes in with the Stand United. That's already 1 kill to G2. Rascal unable to get away, and now 5 members strong. G2 could look to push in. This is Cannon Wave. Only Ruler cleared life here. BDD does have TP. He's going to back first, but this Inhibitor Tower might be forfeit for the time it takes Gen G to get back on the map. Inhibitor Tower goes down. Perk stepping forward once again. BDD locking in the gold card, looking for a man to catch. The Inhibitor Tower does fall as G2 decide to back away.
You know, we talked about looking for picks on a side lane. That was a good one from Caps. Looking to punish Rascal down towards the bot side of the map. Didn't even have an opportunity to flash because he was locked down by his own ultimate. Yep. And 25 stacks on the Medjais. Here we go, the curtain call comes through.
They're trying to burn Ruler's flash here, but he can just step behind Cleared and Life. Didn't find the mark as well, so it only hits onto Cleared. But look at the damage from Perks. The Seek's going to come out. BDD on the backside of this fight. The Devour used onto Perks. He's going to have to try and get away because here comes Rascal. No ultimate on the Camille, but Mickey the first target. Using the thick skin, trying to survive. He manages to, even through the Ignite, stepping forward. The slip's already been used, but Ruler being chased off. The arrow goes wide. Almost sniped by his own shot there, but couldn't quite hit it. BDD torn it underneath the towers. Wonder flashes forward. Perks goes in with the final shot. And it will find its mark. 2 quick kills to G2.
Another big team fight that goes in G2's favor, and they're only going to continue to snowball the gold lead. And it was another situation for Gen G. It just felt like desperation. They're running out of options. They're running out of time, and they tried to force that fight. And G2 just so quickly collapse and turn it in their favor. They're going to continue to extend the goal lead. Not going to go for the Baron, though. Feel like it's a little too risky at this point in the game. Instead, just going to catch waves, look to reset. They may even catch Rascal out here.
Rascal underneath the tower. Watch out as Clid comes in as well. But Rascal's actually almost dead as Perks just steps forward. That was just bad from Rascal. You're greeding for a single tower. That's 40 seconds that your team doesn't have you. And now the Baron very much on the menu for G2.
Certainly is, Medic. That's a good call there. Rascal, with the huge mistake, ends up getting punished. Klitsch tries to defend him. Now G2 can quite easily set up for this objective. They have more than enough damage. Caps is going to be the bodyguard as he looks for a pick onto BDD.
It's 2 levels up.
He will be spotted out, but what a monster performance from the man in the mid lane as G2 look to continue this snowball. I'm kind of just like, I'm thinking more about it. I'm really impressed with the preparation that G2 have come in because, you know, again, when we looked at that draft, we were like, wow, G2 just going to give it over. They're just going to give away what they played so well in game 1, but it feels like that they came in well prepared, they had a very good answer, and like, let's just look at this fight. So it's Gen G that collapsed first, but the Tahm Kench mitigates the pick potential. Tahm Kench is also tanking up a lot, and then Wonder's able to join. Oh, hang on.
Mickey's been caught out. BDD going on the chase. They want to wonder. Jankos trying to join the fray. As Caps not able to join this fight yet. You can see Jankos almost down. Life on the front lines. Going to get slept, but he can use the Gargoyle Stone Plate to heal himself back up. Now it's a great fight for Gen G as they push forward, but the Solar Flare finds 3 on the back line. Is a double for Caps, and the curtains have opened. And perhaps this is the encore that Perks was looking for. BDD sniped down, a triple for Caps. Add more pages to the book as the Medjai Soul Stealer is all the way up to 25.
I think that was a Leona ultimate, but with all the AP of a
Yes,
Silas.
it was! The power of 1,000 suns!
And Caps just blows up the backline. Wow, okay, so what was a terrible fight for G2 ends up being swung off the back of Caps' beautiful play there. The Death Cap coming in clutch, and like you can see that Gen G, I understand more why they're trying to go for these fights. Like you can
And the
see
start of that fight was so good.
Yeah, and they're able to get that pick onto Mickey, and when we get the replay, we'll be able to see like he was caught out of position, and then like let's keep a track of Caps here. So he steals away the Leona ultimate. He's going to throw it onto the backline. Look at the damage! He takes half the HP off of 3 members. He even gets a kill off the back of it, and then that's immediately all that they needed. Oh, wow, I have not seen that before. But yeah, late game Silas.
Yep. And now with this Red Bull Baron power play, G2 continue to take down at structures. Solar Flare's going to hit on towards the backline. That's Perks caught out, but you can see Life almost down before you can even get out of the fight. Ignite ticking on Caps, uses the stopwatch to dodge the spear. He's going to come back up, and with the ammo, oh my god! Oh, that is disgusting! That is the most illegal ammo I have ever seen. Clint dives in, Rascal dives in, but they've already done, and Caps is still alive, and he's almost back up to full HP. Ruler, the last man standing, and what a fated end it is for Gen G as he goes down. Another triple for Caps, and G2 against their own composition slap it right back in Gen G's face. This has been once again a demolition from the LEC #1 seed as they go 2-0 up versus Gen G.
Claps is here to play, Medic, and what a fantastic game 2 from him. Really showcasing the strength of this Silas and why it can be such an effective pick into the Twisted Fate. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more from the analyst desks so that we can get a little bit more insight on these drafts, because, like, again, I think that the response was extremely well done from G2, the way in which they answered. And, like, you know, I was questioning, like, why are Gen G trying to force these 5v5s? Why are they going for them? But it felt like that Gen G recognized much earlier than I did the situation that they were in, and the only way they could actually turn this game around was off the back of that. And again, like, we're seeing such good laning from the side of Gen G, but it's really not being converted into a lot in the mid game. And I feel like the traditionally they would get a lot of these good fights around the dragons, but like we haven't seen a dragon fight like once in this whole series. So many of them are happening in the side lanes, in the mid lane, around things like towers, picks. Like,
I mean, you compare this to yesterday's series where we saw front to back 5v5s at least twice a game. Like, it was so consistent. Here we are just never seeing them. It's all picks, it's all skirmishes. Maybe that mid lane fight you could count it as a 5v5, but it's really not the way that G2 and Gen G are playing. But while we wait for Game 3, listen to KDA's Pop Stars from Spotify's official League of Legends playlist during our Spotify song break.
Welcome back to the LEC Interview Studio here in Berlin. Laure, joined by Lucy. And Lucy, for those who don't know her, she is the LEC Scout Analyst for G2 Esports. Thank you very much for joining me. It's so nice to see you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's amazing to see you again.
So for those who don't know your job at G2, can you explain a bit what is a Scout Analyst, please?
So I'm basically responsible for preparing the team for the opponents that we'll be playing against, so that the players know the tendencies that the team play against, and basically just have an idea of what they're playing against, so they have no surprises and they can dictate what map movements they will do.
All right. Well, I know that usually on socials you're very passionate or vocal about your team's performances, whether they succeed or run it down. So since the beginning of World Championship, how do you think about G2?
I think we had our very clear G2 moments. We had some good moments and some moments where we kind of run it down. But I guess that's expected when watching us. You know, we give our fans a bigger heart attack and anxiety attacks when watching us. But overall, I think that we are improving very well as a team during Worlds, and I'm very happy with the performance that we are showing.
How is it for you so far? Because I know the year has been strange as a whole, but I mean, you're also helping the team remotely here. So how does this work exactly?
Yeah, so I'm incapable of watching any of the scrim games because obviously they're in China and it's very different time zone. So most of my work and communication of how the team are doing in China kind of goes through Duffman. So I know that what we're doing well, what isn't going well in scrims, and so where to focus my scouting for the team and for the next opponents.
Okay. Now thinking about Gen.G, it looks like it's an easy series so far from you guys, but we'll see about the last game. But okay, talking about the draft here, you went in a totally different direction because Gen.G went with Camille first pick, which means that you went for Lilia and Shen. So you actually led them the first 3 pick that you had for game 1. Can you explain maybe the reasoning behind this?
Yes, so they basically did copy our game 1 draft. At least the top side. But I think that we had a very good answer to it. I think Shen into Camille was something that we played in LEC quite often. And we think that Lilia is probably a higher prior than Nidalee in this meta. And Sylas is obviously a good pick into TF because you can steal the TF ult. So it's a very good sort of counter to what they tried to do. Because when Camille will try to go into side lane, Shed can ult into the team fight on the other side of the map. And likewise, if you match Sylas into TF, then Sylas can steal the TF ult and then join the fight as well. So you'd always have sort of the same number or a number advantage when fighting.
And it played out so well for you. I mean, Caps, this game, what did you think about his performance? It was insane.
I think Cass is definitely in his element. You know, when he buys Medjais and he manages to stack it to 25, he is for sure in his comfort zone. He even tried to go for the 2 dark steals at the start. So it just really shows he's really comfortable on this champion and just in general in this series.
I mean, the whole team feels on the same phase here. Do you have any expectations for the last game and at least the 3rd game? Because we don't know if it's going to be the last one.
Yeah, I don't want to see a repeat of yesterday. So I think I don't want the guys to get cocky. I don't want them to get ahead of themselves. I still want them to respect the enemy and what they are able to do. But I do think that we have shown to sort of counter everything that they have to show. So I think we're in a very good spot right now, but you never know what Gen.G are going to throw in last second.
Yeah. We'll see that in a few minutes. But Lucy, thank you so much for all these insights. And we're going to take a short break and we'll see in a couple moments if G2 can close out the series against Gen.G. Stay tuned.
This was the most disgusting ultimate.
But look at him! He's still alive! He's still surviving!
To me, this play is all about mechanical execution.
Prey trying to get back in! The chase! The resonating strike!
This is one of my absolute all-time favorite moments.
Welcome to Assist of the Week, presented by State Farm. Taking on Su Ning, Team Liquid knew they would have to strike early, and level 1 seemed like the right time.
Finding the level 1 advantage in the end. SOFM happy with the trade for experience. If he takes this red buff, though, it's disastrous. Still, though, Jin's going to walk forward. SOFM getting just a little bit greasy. Phase Rush Brox zooming in and out, trying to find a way back into this one. Gold card going down. Who's going to get it? Brox is still level 1. It's ticking. Brox gets it. That's level 2 now coming in. But it's Tom Catch to the backside, and it's absolute chaos. TL fighting with everything they have. It's back and forth. Another gold card. Sword Art walking forward. Home Form back on the way in. TL, they've bitten off more than they can chew, and they're getting run down. They need to make it out as fast as they can. Run for the hills, TL. You bet it.
Just kidding. Oh.
Of Worlds 2020, and today, through OppoCam, I'm going to take you behind the scenes of our XR technology. We wanted something that would be very special for not just the audience, but for the pros themselves. Given all the complexities around travel and everything with COVID, we couldn't guarantee that we could bring people together with a live audience. And so what we wanted to do was develop a broadcast experience that would let us take the stage anywhere that we wanted. So during the show, when the pro players and coaches and referees are all on stage, they're seeing something slightly different than what the broadcast audience sees. The broadcast audience is seeing the active perspective. What the pro players are seeing is almost like smears of color. It creates a very real sense of place for the pro players, so they do feel like they're on stage, they do feel like they're at Worlds, and they do have a sense of the environment interacting around them. Rather than doing the final in XR, we're going to do the thing that we love most, which is a live show. We'll have some of the largest LED screens that we've ever brought to a World Final. There's going to be a large gateway that's over 32 meters tall, and most exciting, we have a significant amount of augmented reality to bring KDA to life and some other very exciting things that I hope people enjoy. Thanks everyone, that's all for today. I hope you're all looking forward to the final stage, and I really hope that you'll be surprised.
Oh, that is so cool. A little bit of a teaser for what we're about to see and also what the stage looks like in Chang'an. We got a behind-the-scenes look at the technology that is powering the set design behind Worlds this year. Thank you to our friends at Oppo and their Find X2 camera for that. Now let's turn our attention to the draft for Game 3. No monologue this time. You can sit back down. However, we are going to switch it up a little bit because we have someone right here who drafted against Genji in the LCK as well as against G2 in the past. Yeah. And Kadril, who is usually at the mercy of his coach, you know. So now he gets to play Master himself. So what are our focuses going into this third draft? Reminding us that we saw these three twice on either side of the matchup.
Like for me, the key thing is Genji have shown a complete inability to play on side lane. Against this, you can't do that. With it, you can't do that. So just remove it. Just remove the Twisted Fate. Remove the Camille. Don't play it, because I think it just comes down to team fights for Genji.
Yeah, I think BDD on Mage is much better than on a TF. You saw it. I don't know if it was uncomfortable, but he didn't find any real good place with Rascal and the Camille. And I just think that Rascal with the Nidalee Renekton with Clit did look pretty good in the group stage, but Renekton's being banned out. There's not much answers, and I think that they should ban it out and just try to find something else that works for them.
They will be on red side for this game, but we have to talk about the elephant in the room and on the Rift. Caps is smurfing on these games, and I think it's one of these cases where you don't really get anything about trying to ban him out completely, right? It is all about finding the different solutions for your team. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this guy has a champion Ocean, and I feel like he's definitely on point. We haven't seen too much craps. We're just seeing claps only. And I think that the answer they had into the TF was actually really strong. They did draft quite a heavy AP topside on the side of G2, but it looked like it worked. But we are getting into draft now, and set ban straight away.
Yeah, the set ban I like a lot because it's a live classic on the bot lane. I think anything that makes bot lane less explosive is good for them. I think the Tahm Kench was beautiful into the other champions, and I think Kalista ban is also good. Anything that...
What I like about the Kalista ban is they initially played Kalista on blue side, so counter picking support's a lot harder. This time they ban it on the red side, so they know if they want to the Kalista, they can get counter pick support as well. Could really affect the bot lane. But Lilia being banned out kind of raises up the Graves Nidalee prio. If both of those are banned out, then it's looking at something like a Kindred.
What is the biggest prio here when you look at kind of overarching trends? Because it looks like the bot lane, G2 are fine giving Ruler things that he's comfortable on regardless, and that kind of becomes a non-factor in terms of draft at least.
Yeah, I think the current bot meta is kind of docile. It's with the Ashe and the Senna and the Ezreal. You don't have those hyper carries. You're not going to see Ruler bust out like a Twitch that makes like, oh, he's on a timer, he's going to scale. It's just, it's tough to force those crazy matchups.
Yeah, and that's the Graves' first pick. With Lilia and Nidalee being down, it's a bit It's a bit OP. I think AP junglers is what counts as Graves right now, so we'll have to see what Clid wants to put out. Does he want to put out something like the Kindred, which we saw a lot in yesterday's series, but I'm looking at ADs here. I think Jhin has looked pretty strong in this series.
Perks has also looked very good on Jhin. We had some question marks about the bot lane, I think, in general, comparatively to Gen G, but that's not been an issue.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you know, Jhin is something that is always going to be useful, and Genji decided to continue with the path of Twisted Fate. I guess they're just too afraid to give it up, and they felt like the Ornn ban needed to happen. I'm kind of curious why the Ornn ban happens, because if Ornn is up there, it means the top lane is just an island, and you can play into that bottom side, your strength.
So I think two things that might happen here. I mean, Caps can always respond with the Sylas, which I think is really good. The Ornn ban, I think, the only reason I can see behind it is they want to play a carry top like the Renekton, like the Camille, and shutting down an Ornn and diving him is a lot harder than having a skill matchup in top. So I think we're definitely looking at the Renekton 3-pick or a Camille 3-pick here. The Kindred does get locked in, and there's the Jhin from Perks. So they want to run the Sylas? Yes, they do. They're running it back. They have the Graves this time around, so Genji, if they do pick their top laner here, they're playing its top side. Ruler will get banned out a bit with the Side of Life. We're looking at Ashe, Senna, Ezreal for Ruler here now. But I think picking something like a really strong split-pushing top here would be good.
I think the key thing here for Genji is just how do they want to approach the whole Camille situation. Will they ban out the Shen to prepare for the Camille, maybe force a Camille ban, or remove Camille Renekton, the good blind picks, and set up for a 5th pick? Or they just go the other route completely and they just go for the super 5th pick. But I think with Life's champion pool, looking for maybe a Pantheon or something of the kind, I think is also a good approach.
What I found interesting so far in the series is that it seemed like in Game 2 you think, oh, this is a great comp from the side of Gen G, and now you would also say that's going in the right direction, but because of the experience that we have from those previous 2 games and kind of the tape, we do want to see something different. So with the Kindred now and the Ezreal, are you seeing something different that should be enough or not, Yamato?
I'm not sure. I feel like Kindred and Ezreal fit that gear and are decent into the Sylas because he wants to, of course, commit, and Kindred love those situations. It's just a question of Twisted Fate. Sylas did so well into it the last time, and Twisted Fate forces a situation where they need to make plays on side. I imagine Genji doing well where they just play around those dragons, similar to the first game, where eventually they get on soul point and they force G2 to skirmish in 5v5s.
Yeah, and I think the 2 adaptations I like from Genji here is, first of all, you're playing an 80 AP mid-jungle mixed damage into the Sylas, playing double AP and shutting down the globals. If Caps was to take away the TF ult, they have the Pantheon on top of that, and Mickey X's Pantheon in Game 1 looked super, super good.
I think the question mark for me here is just, I want G2 to pick a ranged top lane. You want to pick as many ranged champions into the Kindred as possible, but the other flip side of that is tough to play that into Twisted Fate. Like, imagine a Cannon is something that I would have loved, but the Sion matchup makes the top matchup really good for them. They could just lock in Shen here.
But I just don't think the Sion is what you need here. If you're going to play TF, you're playing over sides. If you're playing a 1-4 comp with TF, it doesn't make much sense.
And Ezreal's bot.
Exactly, and Ezreal's bot, so you don't have too much playmaking. I like this adaptation slightly more. I don't think Ezreal Tam is that good of a lane. They're going to get a really good counter pick on support here. But Wunder's going to have to blind, so maybe he's the one who picks up the Sion, because something defensive into the TF means you can't shut him down. But I think the Tam Kench is good because you have the Tam ult now, you have the TF ult now. You have to round that out with some kind of split pushing damage.
And we have to just see if they can use their globals as effectively as G2 has in the past, because as you say, Yamato, the map movements, the play on the lanes, as well as adjusting to what's happening on the map is what we want to see out of Genji. And they've got a couple of tools there, and their Renekton comes out.
Now I wonder if the Volibear is going to come out. It's the most common response to Renekton. I like the fact that Wunder is showing he's the alpha here. I'm taking the Renekton. You can pick the TF. We're going to play into top side. So yeah, the Volibear response is the most likely thing to come out.
Yeah, Rascal has picked it up a couple of times in group stage as well. Very comfortable on the champion, and especially in this matchup. We've got the comps rounded out and some different looks coming out of both sides. Yamato, what is your final judgment on the draft on both sides?
Honestly, I like what Genji brought to the table. I think with the Twisted Fate and the Kindred, I think locking in Sylas and Renekton gives those champions like Kindred so much value. I think G2 really need to be the ones engaging into an Ezreal TF Kindred, which is going to be super hard in the 5v5s. And I think the idea of the game is very streamlined, just playing to the top side, which I like less. But Ruler, his Ezreal is very, very good. I think this is the best Genji draft we saw so far.
I think Genji swapped it up. They're not playing into bot anymore. They have Ezreal Tam. That's a very safe farming lane. I think playing into top side is what you're looking at here. I think the Volibear does win into the Renekton, especially with the TF ult. So if G2 don't find a way to shut this down, or they don't really find a way to win the 3v3 top side, I think they're going to struggle, and Genji could pick up this game.
Okay, we'll see what happens. We can also not forget that this is match point for G2. Only one win needed, but we learned yesterday that that isn't always enough. Genji stepping onto the Rift with a strong draft and big chances in this game. We're going to see the coaches Oh, it was fist bump this time. I love it. A little bit of a change in the meta there for the coaches. And with that... yeah, is anyone going to do a joke where they try and fall in the water? I hope so. Anyway, the teams are loading onto the Rift, so let's send it over to Medic and Vedius for Game 3.
Thank you very much, Shox. Possibly the final game of Worlds quarterfinals, Vedius. Very different compositions from both teams here. As Yamato said, it feels like Gen G are deciding to leave Ruler a little bit more alone in this game and play towards the top side of the map instead.
I mean, I think you can. What we've seen from Ruler and Life in these early game 2v2s is that they've been quite good. So I think that just giving them the freedom to be a little bit more on the weak side, like playing a little bit more defensively. We'll see how they manage. This is a very defensive bot lane. You know, Ezreal plus the Tahm Kench, obviously a very difficult one to kill. And I love what the analyst desk was saying. I think that for Gen G, it's kind of like, okay, so they have the ability to play through topside, which, to be fair, they did a fair amount during the group stage, and they've also been very good at. I think the Rascal is strong towards the top side. I'm having a look right now.
No, Mickey's jumped the wall. Mickey's jumped the wall. We used to see Fnatic do this all the time. Hylissang, he sneaks behind people. BDD won't have heard that sound that we heard as Mickey jumped over the wall, and now Mickey can just flank over there, wait for the W cooldown. It will be about 3 seconds off now, I think. Played a bunch of a card last night in Clash, so here he goes. They're going to step forward, immediately forces the flash out of BDD.
That's 3 different level 1s we've now seen from G2, and 3 different flashes that they've burnt. In Game 1, it was Rascal. In Game 2, it was Life. And now in Game 3, it is BDD. So, good stuff from G2. I love all this level 1 innovation that we have been seeing. And it's going to pay off because the fact that you lose your flash this early on leaves you very susceptible to ganks. While Grey is not considered the strongest ganking jungler, the great thing about Sylas is you do have good setup with your E, so we'll have to see how things pan out.
I saw yesterday Nemesis lose his flash early on the Twisted Fate in Game 5, and he was repeat ganked. Died 3 times, I think, before the 15-minute mark in this game. Jankos has the opportunity to try and put BDD behind. But BDD, he showed us in Game 1 just how safe he can play, how much he respects where the enemy jungler can be. He will be pretty wary of stepping up towards Caps and Jankos.
Let's follow the junglers now very quickly because you can see that Klid's immediately moving over towards the enemy blue. They put a very early ward there to see where Jankos was starting. The question is, will Jankos read the play? He's actually going to start up his wolves, so he's going to have no idea that this is happening. And Klid should be able to walk away with this one completely free. Jankos can be caught with his pants down there. Not going to realize that that still has happened. Klid may even go for a bit of a cheeky play here.
He's got the advantage. Smite came down. It was secured by Jankos. You can see because he's on 12 CS. Klid forced away just a little bit, but Wolf will make Jankos have to retreat out of his jungle. Now Klid can steal away the Gromp. Ruler diving forward has used that E, but no level 2 for G2's bot lane means they cannot answer the pressure of Ruler dashing in. Jankos coming all the way around for the Gromp. Doesn't have his smite, but nor does Klid. Klid quite low. Wonder working his way down from the top lane, and as the Gromp resets, Jankos will be happy to get it, but sad that it ran out of patience.
Jankos also going to lose his blue buff, but overall, Gen G off to a very good start in the laning phase, early level 2 in the bot lane. You can see the BDD has reclaimed some pressure because the range advantage he does have over Caps, and Klid is going to be able to triple buff Jankos as well. So, all in all, good stuff for Gen G, but this should come as no surprise. I think that we've seen pretty much consistently throughout this series, their early laning phase has been the better of the 2 teams. The problem is they haven't really been able to convert this into a significant advantage come the mid-game, and even with these small leads that they accrue, they don't really snowball off the back of them. So we'll have to see once BDD hits level 6, will he look for a play somewhere on the map?
Bit unfortunate for Klid as well that the mark spawned on the top Scuttle Crab instead of the bottom Scuttle Crab, so he's not off to the races in terms of those Kindred marks. Of course, 4 gets you that extra 75 attack range. Makes you just so much more powerful on that champion. Caps working his way up towards top lane. Rascal giving Wonder a little bit of respect, backing away, trying to use the E to clear out the minions, and looks like Jankos is just going to settle to take away these Krugs, and Caps, he's kind of hovering. He's working out if he wants to go back towards mid as the wave gets pushed in. He will go and catch those minions, but Rascal has spotted out Jankos. Jankos doesn't have smite. He's going to look to take these Krugs. Rascal with the Thundering Roar could get the stun, but just forces Jankos away from the Krugs and will take them for himself.
He knows that a wave is pushing in towards top side. There's no point trying to contest that wave for the time being, so you're better off just getting that last bit of farm and then going to go catch the wave top. This will give Wonder the opportunity to do a very quick base. He won't have to expend his TP. He can actually just walk back to lane. But look at Kindred. Ooh, I thought that he may be looking for a bit of a play towards bot side because... So the thing is, Clid knew that Jankos was top side, which means that because he's already here, the delayed reset was going to come through. But he decided to not commit to that play, and for now, Jankos actually has a bit of a level advantage over Clid.
Just farming up those small camps as soon as they respawn. He's on his Razor Beaks, but's been spotted out on a ward. We are getting towards that level 6 mark that you talked about, Vedius. BDD 5 at the moment. Life going in. Here's the TB, and Life may be overstepped. Flashes away, but the teleport coming in from Caps looks for the chase. Dives forward. Can't quite get the damage. The thick skin comes out from Life, but Life hit with a dancing grenade, and G2 are dancing all the way to the bank with that kill.
The level 5 teleport from Caps into bot lane. You don't expect that. It feels like that it was quite the bait coming out from G2, because I was curious as to why Perkz was backing when he still had 1 health pot left. I thought that, you know, he could probably stick around in lane for a little bit longer. I think he actually needed a little bit more gold for that BF sword, but maybe it was a bait. Maybe it wasn't. I'm not entirely sure, but all I know is that he was recalling on a ward, and Life wanted to try and interrupt, and then that was just call for the opportunity for G2 to commit to that play. Caps isn't going to lose much off the back of it, except for a bit of farm, and now Jankos has found Clid.
Trading onto Clid. Rascal's worked his way down here as well. Jankos does have flash, may have to use it across this wall as Caps dives onto BDD. Level 6 for Caps, only level 5 for the mid laner from Gen G as G2 step back into the mid lane. Gen G going to retreat, push their way back. Life, of course, no flashes. He burned it earlier on. Just going to stay near Clid to try and re-secure some of this jungle. But G2 are stepping in and will take the Razor Beaks for their own.
So this is some of the good and common jungle support synergy that we often see from G2. Mickey now roaming with Caps, already looking for a dive in the top lane. Twisted Fate ult to answer.
Destiny coming out, TP as well. Gen G going to get dived underneath the tower. Rascal's already down. Mickey takes the kill, but Life is here. Clid is here. Wonder trying to get away. It's a 3v2 in favor of G2 right now, but Gen G are answering back. Mickey stunned up. We'll have the battle dance. Still stunned with the gold card. BDD on the chase. Gen G still trying to push forward here as they TP in. Caps dives back into the fight. Life eats up Clid. Wonder's going to flash away. Slice and Dice won't get him the range that he needs, and Rascal's actually looking for both of them at the same time. The stun card connects onto Wonder, and Gen G will get a kill.
So what surprises me is that G2 were able to get away with what they did. They only end up losing 1 member there, but think about what that cost them. BDD had to use his teleport. I think Ruler even... Did he burn his flash in that play, or was that in the play in the bot lane? Because for some reason he does not have his flash, and I don't remember him burning it. In any case, like, the fact that so much was expended and G2 end up getting a 1-for-1 overall, I think G2 is pretty happy with that. And now they're still looking for Clid. Caps is not done with his roams.
Yeah, Clid actually still only level 4 on this Kindred. And was able to get an assist in that last fight. You can see he's only a single jungle item. They go for the dive early on.
And I love that he steals away the volley bear ultimate to make this dive that much easier. And I think that G2's thinking they can actually turn this. And if it weren't for the TP here from BDD, I think G2 would have committed to the fight. But BDD does join. Mickey then flashes, uses his E, uses the second E, and then looks like they're going to re-engage because he's only level 4. But this is then the power of the Tahm Kench keeping the Kindred alive, which buys enough time for Rascal to join the fray. But expending both ultimates to just get a single kill on the top side, I think is a lot invested, which then makes things easier for G2 in the bot side of the map.
So the reason BDD had to teleport to that play was because he destinied bot lane, and they were trying to kill Perkz. Ruler flashed forward, Perkz healed and didn't die. So that's where the investment went.
I did wonder why he didn't actually use it top lane.
Yes. He went down towards the bottom lane. Jankos now has a flank position, level 6. Gen G, a little bit underneath their tower.
So we just talked about it. No teleports, no Destiny.
That control ward was outside of the bush, so they don't know that Jankos is waiting, and Caps comes in with a Destiny of his own. He has a date with the semi-finals, and G2 take 2 in the bottom lane.
Oh my word, G2 using BDD's ult against him, being able to set up that dive, and it's just a good punish. Because we talked already about the lack of teleports. Gen G can't respond to this play. The only thing Gen G can do is sack that farm, and they decided not to do it. They can't respond. G2 sent 5 people bot lane. And sure, Caps is down like 20 CS. He is behind in experience, but the benefits that his team are getting off the back of these roams is just huge for G2.
I mean, you just have to look at his performance in the first game as well. Had such a stellar, in the second game, sorry, such a stellar performance on that side. So now that control ward is not in the bush, Vedius.
You talked about it, Medic. He does not spot him out. I think the TP from Wonder wasn't really necessary, but hey, he wants to get involved in the action as well. I think he also recognizes that he's on the weak side of the map, so why not invest the TP under the risk of potentially getting dived? Is able to avoid it. It means that G2 now get themselves to a 2k gold advantage.
Gen.G will secure the Rift Herald in the top side of the map. They are trading sides of the map with G2. As the Dragon was taken by G2, it's only a mountain. 2,000 gold lead, though, for the LEC representatives. Ruler and Life have switched their way back up to this top lane. And Life is actually a little bit behind in this lane. Now, he has been dived a couple of times by G2, which will cost you a little bit. But even in the previous games, you know, he was getting a CS lead or getting a few kills, and you could kind of rely on Ruler to be a carry in the later portion of the game. Here, this Ezreal is going to take just that little bit more time to scale up.
Yes, he certainly is, Medic. You just look at the difference in itemization between the two AD carries. Perks already well on his way to the Storm Rays, and now G2 found another skirmish.
Here's the Destiny, though, and Jankos and Wonder need to get out of this because the stun card from BDD locks up Wonder. The Dominus has been pocked. Clint still has the Lamb's Respite, and now Gen.G are going to turn onto Jankos, who tries to dash away. Caps coming in. Stun card once again from BDD. The Stormbringer comes down onto the face of Jankos, and that's 2 quick kills for Gen.G. They're looking for more of his. Caps tries to trade in a 3v1. He's stolen away a Lamb's Respite of his own. Will pop it down immediately, but look at the healing this is giving over to Gen.G as well. Caps in a 1v3 can do nothing. Gen.G find 3 in the bottom river.
And this was a much needed skirmish for Gen.G. They needed to slow down the snowball that G2 was starting to mount. They get a huge punish in the river, and PDD is able to get a good ultimate off on the Twisted Fate. Huge punish. They're going to close the gold gap. Clit is going to get a mark. He's finally going to hit level 7. And this is a big deal for Gen.G.
Yeah, BDD now 3-0-1 on this Twisted Fate. The Rod of Ages will be complete when he backs, and you can see Gen.G are very ready to take the fight against G2.
So in the 2 versus 2, this is actually fine. But of course, it's not a 2 versus 2, it's a 3 versus 2 because of the good ultimate there from BDD. And I think that what they wanted to do was force Clit to use his ultimate so that there's enough time for Caps to join the fray, but they weren't able to make it happen, and Rascal walks away with his life. He's also going to get a bit of health back. Very well done from the Gen.G trio.
Keeps that gold within about 500 between the two teams. Wonder's going to tank up a couple of tower shots in the bottom lane as he walks away from this wave. But still very much on the menu for the next 2 minutes here, Vedia. So if Wonder decides against pushing in, doesn't know where Clit is, doesn't know where Rascal is, so doesn't want to overstep, and BDD's Destiny is actually almost half the way off cooldown, over half the way off cooldown, Vedia.
I was just about to mention that Mickey just upgraded his support item, and I noticed that Life hadn't yet, so I thought we were going to see a big vision difference there, but fortunately for Life, just as he's resetting, was able to get that upgrade as well, which means that both supports on the map. And now we should expect to see a lot more roaming from both Mickey and Life. We already saw them getting involved in the action. You can see that the kill participation for Mickey is 4 out of 4, so he's been very important in setting up a lot of these plays for the team. Well, let's see where he looks to set up his vision. Right now, it's the top side for G2.
And you get to this point of the game sometimes, Vedius, it's like, well, there's no Rift Herald, there's no Dragon, there are plates to play around, but do you really need to be looking for a fight at this point as either of these two teams?
Well, if you're G2, probably.
Oh yeah, because I mean, they just enjoy fighting, but like, is there something that they should be fighting over specifically?
Well, so I think that if you can get more plates, as you mentioned, like, yes, but I think the bigger thing is actually enemy jungle vision control. And I was just about to bring up this red buff that's on our screen, because denying enemy farm, denying enemy experience is very important. So we see a bit of a skirmish on top there. Jankos is getting out, though.
Jankos is out, Perks on his way as well, has to flash away. BDD pot the Ghost, gets the stun card onto Mickey, and here comes the Abyssal Voyage. Life and Clit on the chase for Perks here. He uses heal to try and get the extra movement speed. True Shot Barrage is going to connect, but not too much more damage. Mickey dances over the wall, and in the end, G2 get out, but Gen.G are the ones to chase them out of there.
I like the response here from Gen.G. They recognized what G2 was trying to do, and they shut them down. No red buff will be lost. No camps will be stolen, and they're even able to get a bunch of plates, so Gen.G doing a great job of slowing down the aggression. G2 were at a 2k gold advantage, and Gen.G have been able to bring it back to equal. And BDD on this Twisted Fate having a much better performance. Game 1 he wasn't really, or Game 2 rather, he wasn't really able to have much impact on this Twisted Fate, but getting involved in that river fight, countering this player towards the top side, you can feel that Twisted Fate being much more impactful.
Very experienced player, BDD, of course, and as you say, now he's got the Sheen, the Rod of Ages stacking up. Yeah, looking to get into these side lanes and really help Gen.G get back into this series, because they're currently 2-0 down. Last time they came to Worlds in 2018, Vedius, it was a dire performance for them. 1-5 in the group stages. Ruler maybe caught out here. Mickey does have the quickness, but And Ezreal is a very difficult target to lock down. And Gen.G, I think, topping their group was a degree of redemption for this organization. And now the question is, like, a loss to G2 in a quick 3-0 would feel pretty demoralizing, I think. But maybe if they can start fighting back, then they can make their way back towards the finals. The organization, world champions twice, finalists once. And every time they've made it out of groups, they've made it to the finals, Betty.
Yeah. However, Jankos also has a bit of a legacy of his own. Every time he has gone to Worlds, the lowest he's gotten is a semi-finals. You know, 2 semi-finals, 1 World Final. Internationally, Jankos has quite the record, and one of those records is going to be broken today. Right now, G2 is, of course, set up for success. But we've seen reverse sweeps before. One, but we saw it. I
mean, I closed my eyes a lot at the end, to be honest.
But we'll see how Gen.G are able to bounce back. If they can, of course, the game is very even. They've done a great job. And right now, they're kind of getting that Drake fight that they've wanted for this whole series. G2 has had a habit of just trading on the other side of the map. They've not really ever gone for it, and they've avoided fighting Gen.G as much as possible, but they might not get that opportunity.
Goldcard coming out with the charm, unable to find BDD. Clid now diving in. He's charmed immediately. Lamb's Jetspike comes down just in time. Clid able to save his life. BDD going in with the Sun Card once again. Sizz up Gen.G! 2 quick kills to G2! And Rascal is running for the hills, but the Stormbringer is brought down.
And it's Clid that gets caught out, and at the moment it looks like he's about to get away. The Crocodile comes in from down south and tears them apart. Caps almost loses his life, but he is dancing on the edge of death as Ruler is looking to get something back for Gen.G. That gold lead once again mounts for G2. They'll secure the second Drake. They'll secure the mid-tier 1. And G2 looking to continue that title of being the LCK killers. 3k gold lead now, looking to 3-0. Still a long way left to end out this game, but they are looking dominant.
12-6 all-time before this series versus LCK teams. Now 14-6, looking to make it 15.
So here, Clid coming in from the flank. The last tick of the charm from Mickey catches Clid out, and then the positioning of BDD is very awkward. He realizes the Rascal's coming in, but this is the important part. Wonder on the flank. Like, Gen.G were just uncoordinated, and huge props to Mickey for finding
Clid's out again.
Clid is caught once more. Caps gets himself some more pages in the book, and Gen.G is starting to fall apart, Medic. They're getting caught left, right, and center. These team fights are not coming the way that they want them, and Mickey
who's looking for the chase, can just dance back to Caps here. I will say, anyone else who goes to the library that Caps frequents will be very sad, because he keeps loaning out this darn book,
yes,
Venius.
He does.
Week after week, he's getting it. 8 pages in it this time. The Rift Herald available for G2 if they want to play around this top side of the map. And we did talk about, you know, BDD and Ruler's pedigree and Jankos' pedigree. Caps, he's on track to make his 3rd consecutive World Finals. Made it with Fnatic in 2018, made it with G2 in 2019. Of course, he would have to go through Damwon in the semi-finals still, but he would join only 3 other players on that record. Faker, Bang, and Wolf. Yep. What company to be in?
Caps. I think it's pretty interesting when you think about Caps as a player and how he's kind of in that conversation for the best Western player of all time. Like, there's often been a debate between him and Perks, you know, in terms of their successes since they joined the league, what they've been able to achieve, but no one ever really thought that they would join together to form Europe's super team that has brought their first international title last year for MSI since Season 1 Worlds. And
I appreciate the discussion between Perks and Caps, but when I look at it objectively, Caps won 2018 Summer Spring, went to Finals of Worlds. 2019 Summer Spring, went to Finals of Worlds. 2020 Summer and Spring. He has been in the league for 4 years, has 6 domestic titles and 2 World Championships and an MSI title under his belt. Like, he is the best Western player of all time, in my opinion.
I mean, I think it's a fair argument. Yeah, I think it's a very fair argument. And I think that he's having a very impressive series. But you also have to give credit to Perks.
Yeah, no, he's a great player as well.
It's unfortunately for G2, they did handpick the best European players outside of perhaps Reckless, who did have a very impressive performance yesterday. Now, while there are many star players on G2, we're kind of looking at the star players now for Gen.G to really step up. Of course, Ruler is behind, but he is on one of his most well-known champions, and we've seen him carry before. Yes, they are at a deficit, but the deficit isn't so monumental that there's no way for them to come back from this. So I'm looking at players like BDD, like Ruler, and Clid needs to stop getting caught out, because twice now we've seen two very serious consequences that have paid off heavily in G2's favor.
Yeah, look at where you are in terms of itemization for Genji. You've got Rod of Ages almost fully stacked. He is very strong for this next Infernal fight in a minute and a half. Also, Ruler now has the Iceborne Gauntlet and the Manamune stacking up, so he has the ability to self-heal and also provide more zone control when they look forward for these fights. BDD stepping in.
Jankos just stole the blue there with the ultimate.
I mean, that's a little bit rude.
Yeah, that is a little bit rude, yes.
But for the moment, not going to progress any further. You can see Mickey actually very isolated here. The vision control from G2 is helping him be a little bit more aggressive than perhaps he should, because Genji do not know that no one is behind him. But if they dived on him there, I'm pretty sure Mickey would have been an easy kill to pick up.
Well, I really like this vision that's been set up from G2, and the resets are coming through at just the right time. They know the Drake is spawning soon, they're replenishing the control wards, they're replenishing the wards for Mickey as well, and they haven't put really deep wards in, but what they've done is they've set up this trio of vision around the entrances, around the choke points, because it's really that's the only part that you care about. As they're entering towards the river, you want to find those picks at that point in time. Now that they've replenished that vision, Genji has to invest their own vision in order to just clear this out, which gives G2 full control over the river.
Oh, Perkz caught out here as life goes forward. Destiny coming in. Genji have found their opportunity, but the Captain Jack from Perkz gets him out alive, and Mickey dives in with the quickness to save his AD carry. Jankos now on the front line as the curtains come in. Lamb's respite used by Clid, but he has been abandoned by his team. Flashes over the wall, but Wonder will slice and dice him up for dinner. G2 get another kill, and they turn their eyes towards the dragon.
That was supposed to be a mistake. That was supposed to be Perkz getting caught out of position and Genji's window to get back into this game. But Mickey keeps doing Mickey X things. How does he find these windows to keep his AD carry alive? The three-man taunt onto the backline to buy time and separate Clid from his team was exactly what Perkz needed to get out of harm's way and allow G2 to find the pick, find the Drake, and get a little bit more damage. And now the gold lead is only continuing to balloon.
Yeah, now it's Infernal Soul point for G2 in 4.5 minutes time. BDD looking up towards the top lane. Jankos gonna spot him. Caps dives in the smoke screen. BDD just had no opportunity, had no knowledge that anyone was waiting for him. Jankos lets out a little chuckle, and he might be laughing his way all the way to semi-finals here, Vedius.
He missed his ultimate. That's why he's laughing. He told Caps to shut up and stop looking at it. He got the kill, and that's all that matters. Caps now may be isolated. Ruler, Life, and Clid are all looking for the collapse. Things are really starting to fall apart here for Genji as member after member keeps getting caught out. We talked about some of these stars that we need to see step up. BDD, his use of the ultimate in the mid lane was good, but it didn't result in anything. Ruler still not at a point where he can really carry on this Ezreal, and Genji, they're not getting these team fights that they want. They need to try to slow the game down, wait for that next Infernal, try and get as many items as they can before going for that last ditch fight, because that could be their last fight of the tournament. They need to make every play count.
And with Caps and Jankos pushing in the top lane, working as a duo, what we have lacked from Genji, we have seen from G2, that ability to create pressure in a side lane, to work jungle and mid together, and manage to play around vision from your opponents. Mickey here, it's all on his lonesome once again. The Abyssal Voyage used by Life just in case someone was backing up Mickey. And he's just a nuisance. He's a pest more than anything else. Life, once again, stepping forward. There's the knock-up. Smokescreen's been used by Jankos already, and Life is chunked down to half HP. Deadly Flourish is going to connect as well as G2 look to push in, gain this mid-pressure. Look at the TP behind them. The Rascal on a great flank position here in Genji. They want the fight right now. BDD with the Destiny will get away. And perhaps they've caught out Perkz on the back line. But here comes Mickey once again. Storm bring it in from Rascal. Takes one. Mickey's going to fall shortly after he dances back. Rascal gets a double. The Volley Bear ripping G2 asunder with his claws. That's 3 for Rascal, and Genji have found the fight they were looking for. Caps would have to do something incredible to turn this one around as Wonder dives in. Caps can't get in there as well. That's 4 for Genji. And Benny, you said it might be their last fight of the tournament. Well, they are darn well fighting back.
They certainly are, Medic. Beautiful team fight for Genji. 5 members still alive with only Caps left standing. He's a good player, but I don't know if he can 1v5 this. There's no ultimates left to steal. Ruler's going to keep him zoned out of the pit. No TPs left available. He's going to have to go back to base. Genji are not out of worlds just yet.
With the Baron secure, Gen.G will equalize that gold. Only 1,000 between the two teams now, and you can see this flank TP from Rascal.
It looked like BDD was going to get collapsed on, but it ends up being Perks. He gets chunked out, and then look at Rascal on the back line. Rips apart the Jin, focuses down Jankos and Caps. He just can't get involved. He's being kept at arm's length. And then Rascal staying alive at the very end with the help of life. Extremely well played fight from Gen.G, utilizing the strength of their comp, and this was the team fight that they've been looking for all series long. 4 for 1.
I don't know if that was at the start of the team fight or the end of the team fight.
That was a pretty good team fight. Why are you upset? This is great for Gen.G.
And you can see Ruler really popping off in that fight. 4,000 damage on the Ezreal. Didn't pick up a single kill, but that sometimes the scoreboard can betray the skill of the players. We'll see how much Gen.G can do with this Red Bull Baron power play.
Now, the next most important thing is going to be this fight at the Drake. It is the sole point for G2 Esports, and Gen.G do not want to give it up. Ruler is getting stronger. He was one of the stars that we talked about that needed to step up, and he's doing just that. Both teams looking at each other dead in the eye, grouping up in the mid lane, side lane pushing for G2 in the bot side. Gen.G have it pushing in top.
Ruler doesn't have Death's Dance yet, Vedius. That item could change a fight.
A lot of damage onto Perks. Gen.G feeling very confident right now. Perks does have his summoner spells up, which is going to be very important for the next fight. But Rascal very tanky right now. I like this positioning from Gen.G. They're keeping the priority up in mid. They're making it harder for G2 to maintain control over the river, but you can see that Gen.G having to walk through Fog of War.
No vision. Mickey looking for the flank, puts down a control ward. BDD pushing in mid, has the destiny to join his team if a fight really starts. Rascal's going to go around and clear out this vision from G2, make it so that Mickey can't get the flank position, tries to dive in, can't land onto Rascal. Walks out, the control ward cleared. Caps spotted with the destiny. BDD still pushing in mid. Caps alone towards the back of the pit. The destiny comes in for BDD, and Caps is on the blast cone, tries to go over the wall, just about survives. Gen.G collapse, and now the Infernal Dragon the target. Clit's going to dive in. There's the quickness, the Stormbringer. Gen.G looking to turn this fight around as they go for the Infernal, but it's taken by Jankos, it's taken by G2, and they'll take a kill to top it off. Wonder down, Rascal down, the TP coming in from Caps as Gen.G on the wrong side of the rift. Here comes Caps, GLP for the slow, Clit, BDD locks in the stun card and smashes it straight at Caps. And now Gen.G backing away once again. There's an Infernal Soul ticking away on G2. Ruler, full HP, almost full mana. Caps uses the Lamb's Respite, trying to hit him up, but Perks flashes forward and snipes out cleared, and that's no Lamb's Respite. Up for Gen.G. Caps goes golden, Ruler's still alive though, diving in, he jumps away, he flashes the wall, BDD able to flash away as well, and Ruler's doing so much work in this fight. He's holding, kicking and screaming as G2 try and knock Gen.G out of Worlds.
Ruler is doing everything in his power to keep Gen.G alive in this game. While they will not fall, they will lose the Infernal Drake. Ruler showcasing why he is a world-class player. But I don't know if it's going to be enough. Let's have a look back at this fight. The Lamb's Respite comes out to keep the dragon alive. But it's Jankos that gets the smite, and the auto as Clid actually jumps out. I don't know if his smite was on cooldown there, as he may have had to use it to keep his health alive. Of course, life goes in. He then gets caught out.
Oh, there's a fight, there's a fight, there's a fight. Bring us back to the action. Rascal devoured up. Life maybe overstepped here. Wonder diving in. Look for Clay, looking for Rascal. Can't quite find them. Sorelli is used by G2. The curtains are opened. And G2 are looking for the final act of this play. Stormbringer in from Caps. Destroys the turret and dives back in. Kingslayer is going to keep him alive for the moment. But look at the damage that Ruler can do already. 3 down. G2 rip Gen.G asunder. And now they are looking for the win. Infernal Soul still on them. The inhibitor tower down. And amongst the wrecks of the LEC, amongst the wrecks of the LCS, G2 stand tall for the West. They are carrying the hopes of Europe on their shoulders. They are looking to be the LCK killers once again. Ruler and Clid have to do something miraculous to defend. It looks like G2 will back away. The minions cleared out. And for the moment, G2 will retreat.
With Rule still
catch.
alive, and perhaps the re-engage from Genji. They're going in.
Rushes forward, exhaust perks. Click gets knocked up. Yanko's trying to do what he can. Ruler still doing some damage. Wonder. Blast goes in. Looks for Ruler. Can't get the stun. Does get the stun. Still dead before he can slice and dice his way through the enemy AD carry. And now Genji are TPing in. They're looking for more. They're looking for the TPs. The BDD coming in from the back. Yanko's forced away. Genji, Rascal flashes forward straight in. Mickey trying to survive. BDD gets the shutdown on perks. Mickey's going to dive back onto Yankos. Where is Caps? You always have to look for him in a fight like this. He's looking for the flank position. Rascal still stepping forward. Caps has a flank. Who's he looking for? Ruler's alive. Stormbringer used by Rascal. Dives in, but he doesn't get the tower deactivated, and so he can't step any further. Caps couldn't find the flank, and Genji, holy moly, they are landing punch after punch in this game.
Right, Medic, you take a second to breathe. I'll take it from here as wow. What a back and forth between the two teams. The game looks done and dusted. G2 won a team fight in the mid lane and they were looking to end. But as long as Ruler doesn't die, Genji still have a chance. They even re-engaged onto G2. They were looking to get a couple kills, couple shutdowns, a little bit more golden experience in their back pocket, and it was worth it. The Baron is now alive, and this could very well be the fight that decides the game. Genji still very much in it. A lot of powerful items have come through. G2 though, they have the wave constantly pushing in mid. So they're looking to push a wave up in top. Mickey gonna take a little bit of damage.
Perks is not with the team. He's in mid lane.
Medic, you rehydrate. There's going to be another huge fight. You're going to need your voice for it. Genji, they're going to secure themselves the mid tier 2. Things are starting to calm down a little bit as the tension starts to rise once more. Top and bot pushing in favor of G2. G2 just have to wait, but they're not going to. They're going to go in.
Mickey BDD's almost dead already. The Devour comes out. It's Life tries to keep him alive. Rascal trying to get onto the back line. The Ram's bit used by Life. Rascal dived on. Quickness being used as well. Rascal doesn't have anyone to help him. Doesn't have anywhere to go. He's down. Caps used the Lime spit to keep himself alive. Yanko's on the chase. Clint has died. Life has died. G2 have done it. Genji, unless Ruler and BDD can pull a rabbit out of a hat, they are done. The deadly flourish connects. BDD goes down. G2 4 for none, and now they're pushing for the win.
Only Ruler is left standing to keep the hopes of Genji alive. The star of this team has the weight of his team on his back, and I don't know if he can do it. He's going to TP back into the base, but he's 1 versus 5. I don't know if he can hold the line. G2 looking to end.
G2, they don't want Ruler to survive, and he will fall. Life up in 5, but it's too little too late. G2 will carry the hopes of the West into the semi-finals. They will carry the hopes of Europe into a showdown against Down1 Gaming after they're done demolishing Genji on their fountain.
G2 end up with the 3-0 over Genji. There were a lot of question marks about their performance after the group stages, but after good prep, good execution, they showed up on today's best of 5 and demolished Genji. We heard it from the analysts. It felt like that in Game 3, Genji got the best draft that they've gotten of the day, something that's comfortable for them, something that they can perform on, and I think that we saw the best of them. We saw some great fights, we saw some great punishes, and we really got to see how talented of a player Ruler really is, but unfortunately, it just wasn't enough, and G2 came out on top. Fantastic performances from so many different members, but Mickey and Caps will really stand out throughout this series.
Mickey's been a standout through the entirety of Worlds.
Oh, they're going to throw him in the water!
No, they throw him in! He can't swim! Okay.
Oh, that was close.
That's a big drop as well.
That's very deep, guys. Careful, careful.
I feel a bit sorry for Genji having to wait while they did that. But yeah, obviously commiserations to Genji. I think they did redeem themselves a little bit in the group stage after going 1-5 last time they were at Worlds.
Sure.
Managing to go 5-1, you know, taking games off Fnatic, 2-0ing TSM. They had a really good performance. But here, on the day, it just felt like G2 were that little bit more coordinated and that little bit better prepared for some of these drafts.
Yeah. It felt like that G2 really came to play, and I think that one of the great things is that we see a return of G2 from last year.
Yeah.
You know, like so many Europeans European fans rather, have been worried because it felt like that G2 has struggled this split. They don't know how to perform at the same level. But now they've come in and they're looking fantastic. So I'm really excited to see that semi. Hence one, we'll see if LCK can reclaim dominance or if G2 will continue this this title of being the LCK killers.
We'll see. It's going to be an incredible series next week. All of our semi-finals will, and we'll give you more takeaways on G2's win in a few minutes. So be sure to stick around.
Welcome back, everyone, to the State Farm Analyst Zone, where G2 Esports once again defeats an LCK team and once again makes it to the semifinal at the World Championship. And it was a 3-0 sweep. And I think when we talked about this matchup leading up to it, a lot of people were thinking it was going to be very hotly contested, best of 5. It might go 5 games. The teams were going to be evenly matched. But it turned out to be very dominating from G2. How come?
I think if you look, I think it all comes from the group stage, right? G2 looked kind of shaky in the group stage against Sunning, but Gen G dominated the group stage, came out as first seed. But I think G2 in the best of 5 is just a different beast.
Yeah, for sure. I think the man in the mid lane just got so much more responsibility in the way they drafted. There was no longer Caps trying to, check jungle camps and, trying to repair a horrible level 1 situation. Instead, he got to focus on himself, and that's the Caps we know and love.
That is the Caps we know and love. Very back and forth game, especially this last one, and we finally started seeing some fight out of Gen G. We saw adaptations in the draft as well as in game, but it just didn't look to be enough. And Yamato, you said a big issue with what you had seen from Gen G was the playing around side lane specifically. There was a lot more going on in the mid lane here, and there were just fights back to back to back.
I'm trying to see it, but the camera's in the way. What's going on the screen?
They're fighting in the mid lane
Fighting in
now?
the mid lane?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this one. I remember this specific situation because it was right before the Infernal Dragon, and from the get-go, I thought draft-wise, G2 would struggle against the Kindred, but G2 just always find a way to piece it together, and they punished all the mistakes that Gen G threw at them. Gen G just didn't have the patience to pull it through, and whenever they overstepped, G2 was there to snap at them like a snapping turtle.
Well, personally, I think in the first 5 minutes, you saw Caps was down 20 CS. It was about 6-40. He dove top, he dove bot. So there was so much early game pressure, and I feel like the only way that Gen G actually came back in this game was G2 getting cocky in the river. They were getting cocky on the overextending, and they went too deep. Even on the fight, they lost at the red buff and lost Baron. They were basically at their tier 2s on the wrong side of the map, and they got collapsed on. But I think G2 in general, they mechanically outplayed them, and I just think that, wow, it was just a great series.
And now a question specifically pertaining to kind of the bottom lane, and we knew that Ruler was going to be a threat supposedly in this best of 5, and questions around Perks. Now I don't know if it was just a side effect from G2 being this far ahead, but for me, Perks played an immaculate Jhin actually 3 games in a row. His positioning in team fights as well as the important moments, so that caught me a bit off guard, and that wasn't really a trump card for Gen G at all.
Yeah, for sure. I think he showcased a lot of good patience, a lot of good draft from Mickey X, always being able to slot in the right support, whether it was the Pantheon or the Tam Kench in this one. Rakan as a counter into, of course, Tam. I think this helps a lot to support Jhin and what he wants to do. And Jhin as a champion, even if you fall behind a couple of CS against the Kalista, you're always going to be able to support what the boys in the top side want to do with some bullets from the background. And that eventually happened. We remember that bullet that hit PDD right in the head. That was beautiful, and I think the Jhin gameplay, I know a lot of people are going to talk about it it's almost a mage. Perks, mage, yeah, nice.
Oh, okay, I see what you did there.
I also think the drafts opened up the Jhin so much, right? You had so much AP on their side. You had a Lilia, Sylas, a TF. It also forces so much Mercury Treads. So these small things that make it so when you have a full crit Jhin against teams with Mercury Treads and magic resistant items, then he does so much damage in team fights.
Yeah, before we get to the bracket, I'd love to crown the Oppo player of the series to just wrap it up. I'm not sure if it's ready. I know we were going to put some highlight plays in there, but I think it's going to be a surprise to no one that the Oppo player of the series is going to Caps. Man, did he turn it on today?
Well, I don't know. Wow. He was just roaming so much. Yeah, he didn't stomp his lane. Yeah, he was giving up so many creeps, but he just got so many kills on the side lanes, whether it was Sylas or TF. He took the TF ult away himself sometimes. And in team fights, you saw the team fights, right?
I did, yeah.
Never dying, just completely popping off, one-shotting the backline. This one in particular, I don't know, too much damage.
Caps is the type of player that really, is memorable for, all the opposition. Caps is the type of player that you see in your nightmares. We almost lost him here in the water,
yes.
But, of course, G2 just needs to make sure that his ego doesn't go too far. He needs to stay humble.
I'm so happy that a team used the like decorum, like shades of Mad Lions. Also, when we get here early for rehearsal, we actually saw some live feed from Shanghai, and one of our production people over there had gotten a what's it called? A snorkel, and was pretending to swim in it. So we're having a bit of fun with it. But I'm happy that Caps did not fall in. We need him for the semifinal. So let's take a look at the bracket, because now we have what was promised and what many fans wanted, and you know where G2 was living rent free in Damwon's head in every single interview in the last year. The rematch is set up. Last year, 3-1 to G2. Now we're talking about a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just looking at, you know, the junglers. The whole story was the junglers of this tournament. And I'm looking at SOFM, Karsa, and Canyon. This is a completely different beast from what Jankos got to face up against in this Gen G Best of 5. So Jankos needs to continue to ramp up, because Canyon has been absolutely on fire. And, of course, Damwon and Gen G might come from the same region, but it doesn't correlate at all. Damwon is a whole different beast.
I have to agree. I mean, in this series alone, Jankos, around level 10 mark, he was always 2 to 3 levels up in the skill jungle matchups and the carry jungle matchups. So when you go against the Karsa and SOFM at Canyon, he might struggle, but there's hope for him. There's good signs of hope in this series.
I mean, he did look better than we kind of expected. I think that was also something we talked about. Yamato, can you just quickly wrap up kind of the Gen G story of their year, which... This is going to be, of course, a horrible exit in this fashion, because I think many fans didn't expect it to go this fast in this best of 5.
I think the tricky thing for Gen G always was they had this identity that everyone feared. And I think they were too stuck in the idea of playing what the meta wants them to play, in the sense of, you know, Nidalee playing to topside. I don't want to take anything off of Rasko, because he had a fantastic Volibear game and you saw some progress in the topside play, but everyone knew Ruler would be the man to cause some upset wins, whether it was against the G2 or any other team. So I think Gen G had some identity crisis, and I don't think they showcased the most dangerous version of Gen G. And I think with the coaching changes, that's something that is also difficult to deal with. I have a very, very high regard to someone like Coach Edgar, because he's the one that brought 2 championship titles to Samsung in the past. And to make that shift in the middle of the season is something that is difficult to deal with. And I think coming into this best of 5, the story of their best of 5 just throughout the year left me with a lot of question marks, and they remain unanswered.
Yeah, and I just think that they really struggled to play through Ruler. We said it before. He was their star player. He is their star player. And as much as he did do well in the fights and the team fights, and he was the last person alive most times, low deaths, he never really got the resources he needed to carry the games.
All right, and that is the end of the line here for Gen G. Our 4 teams remaining: Top Esports, Suning, Damwon, and G2 at the end of the quarterfinals. That was all from us here in Berlin, but we'll be right back with more content with Dash, Wadid, and friends for Worlds Cooldown.
Hello everyone and welcome to Worlds Cooldown, presented by State Farm, your one-stop wrap-up for all things Worlds. We have concluded the quarterfinals with G2 qualifying through in 3-0 dominant fashion. As always, I'm Dash, joined by Spawn, Mark Z, and today we're welcoming Wadid to the Cooldown. Thanks for joining us, my friend. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, and I'm also really good to see my old team is just ripping out Gen G right now.
Yeah, I imagine you must have been in a bit of a tough spot here, representing the LCK as a commentator, but a former teammate to these G2 members. What was your impression of the series before coming in today? What were you expecting?
I mean, I was expecting at least 4 games, you know, because like Gen G, even though their recent performance is not that great, like they got some veteran players and they still have some experience to go through out the BO5s. But today, I mean, they were just worst team like ever I seen in like quarterfinals at Wars, you know. So I mean, it's really disappointing, and at the same time, like it's really good to see how G2 progressed the game really fast.
I love it. Coming in with some of the spice there. Mark, when we take a look at this bracket, of course, we already see the semifinals locked in, but I'm going to keep everyone focused here on the quarterfinal column for just the remainder of the evening. Many people pinpointed this Gen G G2 Esports as one of the quarterfinals that was expected to be close, perhaps a 5-game series.
Yeah, like what Deed said, at least 4. You know, it was going to be what people thought would be the highlight to watch, and you know, I think Fnatic stole the show a little bit with how close they were to upsetting one of the tournament favorites, and Gen G just got slammed. I mean, like what Deed said, it was a little hard to watch at some parts in this series because G2 were just so clearly the better team.
Well, Spawn, let's start then where it felt like maybe it was closest. Game 1, this was, I think, a game that was close until it wasn't, as we like to say at times here in the League of Legends community. G2 starting it off, of course, with a win.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you have a look at this game, I mean, if you had told me that it was going to be flashes blown in the bottom lane, a couple of ganks coming down there, Clid getting protection on his Scuttle Crabs, I would have been like, okay, cool. This is a game plan as how Gen G want to be able to play it. This is what we saw a little bit during the group stage. But I just think that Gen G was surprised by the pace at which G2 were willing to play this game. Repeated attacks into the side lane and just like almost reckless abandon in being able to shut down the solo laners. And it looked like Rascal and BDD honestly had never played a game at this kind of pace before and repetitively got caught out. Yeah, this for me was a game that made it so clear that this was probably going to be a 3-0. As this went on, it felt more and more like, oh my god, G2 is just such a better team because everything went in their favor for Gen G early. They had great objective control. You know, I think they got the first 3 Drakes. I think they got both Rift Heralds. I think they took the first 2 turrets. And the Goldie was never more than 1,000. And then play after play after play, Gen G just got picked apart by G2. G2 just made plays in side lanes. Everywhere Gen G went, G2 went somewhere else on the map and just took control of that game through just being smarter and better players. And that's not a gap you can ever close again. You know, like, you can't make someone dumber. You can adapt in draft. You can adapt to your, like, game plan and some of these things. But, like, the smarter team's always going to be the smarter team. And that's why,
Mark. You just made me dumber right there. That was...
I'm just saying, watching that game, you're like, this series is over. I felt like, oh, my God, as I watched G2 just pull them apart. It wasn't like one big play. It was just play after play. They were the smarter team.
I want to get Wadid back in here.
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, maybe we can talk about the draft first. Like, when you, like, everyone is talking about how OP is blue side right now at War's meta, but I think it comes strong when your jungler can use the advantage from the first pick. But they banned Graves themselves and first picked Lilia, and I don't think this is great approach when it comes to, like, their play style. You know, they want to play for both sides. They want to have strong pressure from the mid jungle, but nothing was happening. I mean, that was happening in the early game, but yeah, I mean, as you said, G2 was just so much better in the team fight and skirmishes. And I mean, I think that's also coming from the draft as well.
I love that point with Deed because it was on the analyst desk there at the close of the day. We heard Yamato talking a little bit about how maybe Gen G got locked into what, you know, quote unquote, the meta at Worlds seems to ask you to do around sometimes AP junglers and a focus to the top lane. But that doesn't necessarily support Gen G's ultimate win condition, Mark.
Yeah, and I think that the draft is a great point because that was like the one saving grace I think Gen G fans might have been holding on to. It was like, okay, they got TF Camille. This is a great macro team. They have great split pushing, and you gave them 2 of the best split pushing champs in the meta. And, you know, Rascal can play Camille. He's done it before. BDD can play TF, you know. And so I think that was one of the areas that if you were going to hold on to any faith for what went wrong game 1, you're like, okay, maybe we can blame the draft a little bit. But it really became apparent that was not the case.
I mean, from their spawn, I mean, what do you think? Mark said game 1 was enough for him to start to assume that 3-0 could be what we are expecting. Were you as far down that, you know, road of conclusion there after game 1?
Yeah, unfortunately, like so the one thing I held out hope on is that I talk about this all the time, like the ruler carry. And I was like, okay, they've put him on an early game 80 carry. Sure, they got a little bit of a lane advantage, but he was never able to translate that because you're playing Kalista into a Camille as well as a Twisted Fate. So maybe if you get rid of the Kalista pick and you put him on a late game carry, this is a guy that's going to be able to light up Summoner's Rift. And I actually thought to myself when he was hovering Ezreal, I was like, this isn't a good Ezreal game. And, you know, he swaps over to Ashe in game 2. And I was just, as soon as I saw how game 2 was starting to go, that was when I really lost hope. Because it was like BDD wasn't holding up in the side lane. He had some good team fights, but we knew that wasn't how the game was going to be played. And then the fact that Ruler wasn't able to assert his will over Perks. And just credit to Perks. I say this all the time. Every time Perks goes up against the best AD carry in the world, he never gets blown out. He's like always competitive. He's always right there. And for me, Ruler is the best AD carry in the world. And like Perks was completely fine against him today. And in certain areas, completely outperformed him as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really good point when it comes to LCK. Like, their rotation is always thinking about the waves and side waves and like those efficiency-wise, you know, like, and I think that's really too much, you know. Sometimes you just need to go mid and just go for ARAM. But like, they're just thinking about way too much about the side lane. And that was the worst part for Gen.G. I mean, they were never like just group up mid and look for the fight actively. And G2 was the one who was just actively looking for the fight, even though they were behind from the early game. They didn't care because they're just playing the team game, and Gen.G wasn't.
Never have I had more hope for North America as a region than when Wadid said sometimes you just have to group up and go mid. There it is. Now, looking ahead towards that game 2 of the day, it started with a bang in the bot lane with Gen.G's life earning the State Farm assist of the day by turning around a gank with a clutch Zenith Blade, handing Ruler an early double kill. Spawn?
This was insane. Like, this just proves how good Life and Ruler are together as a duo lane. This is a 2v3 turnaround outplay. Ruler's target prioritization afterwards as well was just spot on. And this is a guy that has, like, I always call him like an Affliction Warlock, right? His uptime and his DPS is just nuts. And his positioning is so damn good. And I would expect a lot of duo lanes here would probably run for a second too long and actually probably give up the 2 for nothing. Because they weren't willing to turn, but that to me is just like a brilliant play from Life. Like, Ruler's always right there with him, and just really well played. But unfortunately, that wasn't anywhere near enough. When you go 2 for 1 bottom side, that's supposed to be the easy game, but it just never happened that way.
I mean, so then where did it all fall apart? Let's start talking about it, because with such an early advantage, and again, what we talked about in expectation between these two teams is, as we watch it through one more time, just to fully materialize or understand how this game started. I mean, how does it all go bad from here?
I think a lot of it comes down to just skirmishing. There are a number of times where the side of Gen.G couldn't compete. Clids in Italy was not looking too hot. There was a chase down the top side sequence, which ended up in a 2v2, and, you know, BDD and Clids got outplayed by Caps. Caps was an absolute monster this game. He put in such a incredible performance on a Silas, and then you see these skirmishes, these dives that are pretty scrappy and could go either way. G2 are always outperformed. They're one of the best skirmishing teams in the entire world.
Yeah, and that's what, you know, when we talk about G2, we talk about being comfortable in the chaos, right? This is a team that just loves the ability to be able to, not degrade, because that's the wrong way to put it, but they bring the game down a certain level and they just start fighting you and chipping away at that armor. And I think that this was a game that, you know, the LCK representative in Gen.G tried to do what Wadid wanted them to do. They tried to fight back, but you could just see how comfortable, especially with this specific composition, G2 was for taking those small skirmishes that Mark was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, that game was just so easy because you got the bot pressure, and enemy mid lane is just simply mid lane champion. And if you have bot pressure with that, I mean, you can just simply close out the mid lane, you know? You can just disable enemy mid lane, but they didn't do anything around their advantages from the early game. So, I mean, that was so, like, questionable plays from the Gen.G side, and it was always G2 who fights first and looking for the fight, even though they were behind. So
yeah, I completely agree with Wadid, and kind of the game for this came down to the Twist of Fate's first 2 moves. And we talk about TF having like the free move with the Destiny, and what happened is he teleported top lane, but they traded 1 for 1. And then he went bottom lane with his first, so he teleported top, then went Destiny bottom lane, once again traded 1 for 1. Meanwhile, Caps was just sitting mid lane farming. And then on Caps' first move, instantly 2 for nothing bottom lane, 3 plates down onto the turret. And as soon as that happens, when you're playing the melee into the TF, you just have an advantage for pretty much the rest of the game. TF can never catch up from there. That's why we talk about the Destiny being so important. You know, it goes on the longest cooldown out of like many ultimates in the game, and Caps just shows that patience. I mean, this is what we used to credit people for, like Rookie, for doing. You can get multiple roams up on this guy, but he's going to slowly build his leave, and then his one roam is just going to be more impactful. Absolute machine.
I also want to give some credit to G2's draft. You know, there were the takeaways by Gen.G in this game, and G2 found counters that didn't have to come through mid lane in terms of, oh, we took Galio or something to try and match that global. You know, the Sheng was a fantastic counter pick for dealing with both the TF and the Camille, and then having the Tom Kench as well to be able to match these globals. You know, as soon as you lose control of mid lane, your Jin's going to get there a lot faster in these situations into side lane plays, if you ever did go for them, which Gen.G couldn't find after those first couple moves.
Do you know what really annoyed me about the TK as well, Mark? Do you know who hovered the TK? Gen.G. They like showed him the counter pick. Like, I hate it when my team used to do this. Like, why show them the counter pick? Like, if you like, Ash Tom Kench would have been a great lane to play into both Shen and Silas. Like, so either take it or just don't offer the damn champion, because I know it's a little thing, but like sometimes you just
You think
plant
Grabs
seed.
forgot?
Like, well, sometimes genuinely you do. Sometimes as a coach, I've been standing on stage there and like I've just seen someone flick past something and I'm like, well, yeah, wow, that champion does exist and it fits our comps beautifully right now. But Life hovered it for so long in that draft. They knew that this was going to be a game that came down to the globals, and I was so frustrated when Gen G didn't pick it up that game.
Yeah, maybe that's from the mentality as well, because like at game 1, you couldn't do anything because you couldn't make the play. And even though you have such a great tools like Ashe ulti and Camille and TF, you feel like you're still like not comfortable with the engages and looking for the fight. So maybe that's why they picked up the Leona, but I completely agree with that. Like just picking TK up is just way better when it comes to like laning phase and mid game rotation as well.
I think in a lot of ways, these first 2 games of the series had aspects of a series that we expected to see. Of course, as we mentioned, some of the drafting and Gen G's ability to establish leads, but the follow through, and I think you hit the nail on the head in some cases, Spawn, where the pace of G2 has just caught some teams by surprise. But Wadid, before we head to break, I want to get some final thoughts from you, as we'll be subbing you out for Azael to help us break down the rest of the day. So first, on Gen G and the remainder of the series, just a general thoughts here before we say goodbye to that team.
Oh, well, I think they had the strong part. You know, when you think about the Gen G, okay, you play on the ruler and just don't mess up plays like around the top side. But yeah, I mean, they got the advantage, but they couldn't. I don't know, like they were just so good at it, but just completely lost, it seems like, today. So maybe the mentality wise, they were pretty weak, and that was the point that I was pointing out before the game. And yeah, I mean, I'm expecting more about G2 versus Damwon right now, and I think it can be the best series in Worlds 2020 right now.
Well, you just went where I want to go. You just said it might be the best series. I think that's a lot of what people are thinking right now. Do you have any inklings about, what might dictate that series, either a prediction or a lane you want to focus on? Who's going to make or break it for either team?
I mean, I just want to have a full game, like full game 5s, and I strongly think that Damwon and G2 is having similar playstyle as well, like they have no losing point for their teams. So I think it can be really spicy, but I think, like this time around, it can be LCK's year. So even though G2 is really strong, I think it's just time to LCK to shine again and just looking for the LCK dynasty. Yeah.
Yeah, looking to bring it back home to Korea. Both of these teams smashing through their quarterfinals are now paired against each other in what will be an epic semifinal for next Saturday. Wadid, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the Cool Down. It was great to have you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We're going to step away. On the other side, Azael is going to join us to finish up our review of the series, and we've got more World's Cool Down after this. Welcome back to World's Cool Down, presented by State Farm. We're welcoming Azael to the show to help us break down the final game of that 3-0 and to look ahead, of course, to the 2 epic semifinals that we have ahead of us. Before we get to that game 3, Azael, I did want to give you a moment to talk about the first 2 games if we left anything unsaid in the previous segment of Cool Down.
I mean, I agreed with a lot of what you guys were saying. I was honestly really disappointed with the showing that Gen G had, because it wasn't, to me, even like just one thing. It wasn't drafting. It wasn't necessarily team fighting. It felt like everything was kind of just going awry for them. There was so many times where, people just almost were looking like tilted. We have Rascal like dying for towers in side lanes against TF. We have Gen G hard engaging against a Shen comp, not taking into consideration the ultimate whatsoever. We have, all kinds of stuff that just really looked completely uncoordinated. Even in game 1, they have this massive lead, 3 dragons, and then when they finally do try to engage for a fight, they're throwing in their support with 3 of their members not even in range, and he's dying before the Taric ultimate even goes off. It was just like,
life, baby.
Like what is this team that I'm watching? Like, this is not the Gen G that I was expecting. I was expecting it to be competitive, and a lot of that is credit is due for G2 for pushing them and forcing these mistakes. Like, G2 played great, but I think independently of that, Gen G also played a very poor series.
Alrighty, well, that brings us to Game 3. Thank you for that fantastic summary. Game 3, G2, they do what Fnatic couldn't in this regard, and they lock it up in the 3-0 fashion, not giving Gen G a single moment to breathe.
I mean, this game, it was probably technically, in some sense, the closest. Like, there was that Baron situation that Gen.G ended up winning, but it still felt like G2 were going to dominate this game the entire way through. I never had a time where I really thought they were going to lose it, and they were just so clear. Like, watch how many people flash into Wonder here. 3 separate people flashed the wall directly into Wonder. Like, this is how much better G2 was at these skirmishes and team fights that they kept getting into. Clid had a pretty disastrous game this time around on the Kindred. Felt pretty ineffective, and it was another game where Caps absolutely popping off. Wonder's great on the Renekton. And, I mean, it's a complete team for G2. They are one of these teams that is greater than the sum of their parts in a lot of ways, and their parts are great too. And that's why they're such an unbelievable team.
That helps.
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, when you have a look at this game, though, I think at least there was something of the old Gen.G in there. Like, you have a look at like how well the Ruler is positioning in these team fights. You look at the fact that they are able to launch some good coordinated counterattacks. Like, this time around, it's them with the global advantage, and they were able to utilize that to at least get into some winning positions. As you mentioned, Mark, they even grab a Baron in this game. But when you leave your shot that late, like, there's just a feeling of inevitability. And, like, if you're feeling it as viewers, imagine what the team that is representing, like, one of the proudest regions ever with former world champions down 0-2 is feeling. Like, they are so nervous, and you just know, like, you fall behind. Like, they are starting to sweat. And even when they had a little bit of control, you could tell that G2 was just, like, the game was being played the way they wanted to be played, and they were just running over the top of them.
And Mark, in reference to your point about each member of G2 being stellar in their own right, it was Perks in this game that proved that every second counts with an incredible quick Silver Sash activization made possible, of course, by the Cisco network.
This was honestly so fast. Like,
he doesn't stop moving. He's literally still in motion.
Baby, let's go. Those are really, really impressive to me, and it's kind of reminiscent to me of some of, you'll see supports through the self Mikhails where there's that tiny window where you can essentially immune it, and this was basically that. Like, that was not a quick QSS, that was, he never got CC'd. It was so good.
Legitimately, I wonder if there was even a frame where he was not moving. It doesn't feel like it.
I didn't see any animation, like, stutter or reset or anything. It just kept moving, the arms just kept pumping as he ran away.
There it is. There it is. It was gorgeous. I mean, in all reality. But I think when we take a look back at the series as a whole, there is, of course, one member that stands out to me above all else, and that has to be Caps there in the mid lane.
Yeah, I completely agree. When you have a look at Caps now and the journey that he's been on, right, this is a guy that is starting to rise the occasion. As, I mean, you know, he's the greatest Western player, I think, at this stage. And then when you have a look at how he is starting to dominate these games on the big stage, he has genuine 1v9 performances. And as Mark said, that's really hard to do when you're playing with 4 really great players. And, you know, he makes counter picks work, he makes blind picks work. And I think in this series, what he showed is his pressure that he puts on the map. Like, I just wish I could see, like, the percentage of plays he takes versus the percentage of plays that actually work. Because it feels like when he commits to something, it, like, pays off 9 times out of 10 at the moment. And I think that's really difficult to do in a roam-heavy mid lane. A lot of the time, you just feel like you're, like, kind of ebbing and flowing over the map and not really getting all that much done. But this guy gets it done every single time.
And I know you were really positive there, but I'm just gotta contest one thing that you're saying. You know, he's starting to get it done. He's made 2 World Finals. He won MSI. You know, he has been getting it done for years now, honestly. Like, he has been dominating. He's been so consistently successful at international events for years now. Like, he's just always good. Yes, people, you know, if you want to be a detractor, will point towards him against Rookie, you know, some of those types of lanes that didn't go as well. But it's like, that's one guy in the world that maybe he hasn't had as good laning stats against. Everyone else, it feels like he is being incredibly successful against. He has done well against SKT, has done well against Domwon, you know, did incredible against BDD here. He wipes the floor with most of the other Western mid laners. Like, this guy just is top tier and has been for years, and I think there's not really any argument to be made that he is not one of the best in the world, period. Not just like really good for a Western mid laner, or oh, he's the best European. Like, he's just one of the best, period, right? And that's the end of the sentence. He really does deserve, I think, to be talked about, you know, at this point amongst the greats.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, like, in hindsight, right, when you start like weighing the accolades up, which we don't often do, like you do have to start removing the Western bit, and maybe like even saying like the best Western player is a little bit disrespectful for how well he's been globally at the moment. And I do completely agree. Like people will point back to that one or a couple of series, right, in reality against Rookie when they were playing like mirror sides of the matchup, the Aurelias into the Syndras and stuff like that, and the Akali at that point when she was just reworked, and they use that as the glaring factor. But reality was he was a much younger player than Rookie was in that part of his career. And I think the Caps that we see play now, the Caps we see play now would definitely stand up a little bit better, I think, than like what the Caps did back then. So yeah, I'm definitely ready to start putting him in that conversation as well. I think that's a really great point, Azale.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rookie legitimately is just the best laning mid laner in the entire world, but that does not exclude Caps from being in the discussion of the best mid laner in the world because it's more than just laning, right? Rookie is incredible, and I don't know if I'm ready to make that assertion, but Caps, you're just talking about how consistently he's roaming, how consistently he's making plays and putting pressure on the map and exerting his will on the map. He has a damn good laning phase too, but that is not, the keystone of this player's game. I would say it is for Rookie. Rookie has a lot going for him outside of that, of course. But I think it's worth having that discussion, and I think it's really a cool one to talk about.
And I'll just say this is an argument I'm happy to be able to have, that we have a player in the Western Hemisphere stepping up and making it a conversation to this degree. Now, despite the dominating performance from Caps across the entire series, it was Perkz who opened up on Jin to lead G2 in their Game 3 drive to victory. Brought to you, of course, by Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, this step up. I was going to say, this is a huge step up performance for Perkz, I think, because he had been, I think, criticized a little bit coming into the tournament, and he has held up extremely well as they get deeper and deeper in. He is becoming a huge force for them. He's incredible in team fights and is able to play without a lot of the resources that some other bot laners get.
I mean, this was a... Go ahead, Sponge.
I really love this second and a half delay for me versus everyone else, by the way. Absolutely, I agree. And I think that the thing about Perkz is it's so easy to criticize him because, once again, this is a guy that was in the conversation as like such a legendary player. So when he performs average, like people are pretty quick from what I've seen so far at this World Championship to like call out like the statement. But I just think if you have a look at the year this guy's had, you have a look at how important he is for this team. And I said it kind of when Wood Did was on the show. He constantly plays against the best bottom lanes in the world with Mickey. And Mickey's a terrific player, but he never gets gapped. Like, I just cannot remember watching a tournament where I'm like, wow, this guy has been constantly destroyed in the laning phase. Like, he always stands up. He always fulfills his role. And, at the moment, I think that he's getting back to that kind of legendary status where he had a couple of games tonight where the game's revolving around bottom lane. And they're taking it to Ruler, like a guy that I obviously respect a lot. So I just think that, he gets... I think people like to criticize Perkz for his greatness. And sure, Perkz has a lot of defenders out there because a lot of people love him. But I just think he's nearly a player that is, like, not above criticism, but, like, it's just... I don't see the criticism ever really sticking because he's so consistently good.
Well, I think this is an important conversation to have because it was just in the group stage that people were raising concerns for G2 based on the way, the fact that more and more of the games seem to have been determined by bot lane focus and saying, hey, this hasn't been as big of a standout year for him as in previous, and particularly with some of the AD carries that are, top tier in the meta, there was concern, Azale, but very much in this series has he stepped up.
Yeah, I mean, he looked very, very good today. I think part of the reason that we had those concerns, especially being brought up again this year, was in spring, he was their mid laner, right? And they had Caps playing bot lane. Then they swapped back. They actually didn't do very well in the regular season, including a lot of losses where I think he just didn't look as comfortable, and there was a lot of discussion around the fact that when he had shined in the past, it was always on these crit marksmen who could make aggressive plays, the Kaisas, the Zayas, who almost felt like they fit more into how a mid laner could play a fight, where you see the angle and you make it happen, right? And like Senna is just not that. Ashe is just not that for the most part. So I think that is where those discussions did kind of come up. And I think that, to your point, he's answering a lot of those questions that, hey, maybe it took him a little bit of time, but he wasn't playing the role in spring, and he's been able to rise to the occasion here and play really, really well, even on those champions at Worlds.
Now, here at Worlds 2020, MasterCard is still tracking the CS champions, and G2's Wonder is still atop the table. Last week, we thought this series might deliver a new winner, since we expected it to be a little bit closer, perhaps going 5 games, and even at times going into the late game. But these games, much faster than expected, so that 441 still very much in the lead.
Yeah, unfortunately, whilst the members of G2 were farming quite well today, if the games are going for between 28 and 32 minutes, you just not get to 441 CS. So Wonder going to sit up there for one more day. Ruler, unfortunately, not going to get a chance to be able to climb back up there. But I do have hope that some of these games later on in the tournaments will be quite long and will be bangers.
I'm interested because I feel like most of the series have either been 3-0s that are pretty dominant and the games are ending before you can hit these numbers, or they're close and people are scrappy as hell. And the CS is getting left by the wayside.
That's true.
In that top esports Fnatic series, it wasn't uncommon to see heading into the 10 minutes, people at 60 CS, which is pretty low for, best teams in the world, but you have to remember that they're fighting all the time. So if that pace of game keeps up, it might actually be hard to see people break in and change up that leaderboard.
Oh man, what a conundrum. Do we want more fights and less CS, or do we want to do I don't know. I think we want more fights. I think we want more fights. I'm happy to give Wonder that. Wonder, take the award. Take the award. Give us more fights. I want to see
so
scrappy
beautiful,
games.
the CS thing.
All right, MasterCard will, of course, be rewarding viewers with drops when the minion champion is dethroned. So if you're a viewer, perhaps you are screaming for one of those long bangers. So be sure to keep watching at watch.lollysports.com for a chance at some free loot. We, of course, have to talk a little bit more about Gen G as they depart Worlds 2020. I'm coming to you, Azale, first on this one. Again, I think a little bit of a sour taste in some people's mouth in seeing them exit in this fashion. But how did you feel about their Worlds run overall?
I mean, I think overall, they did fairly well. The tough part is you got decimated in your quarterfinals, so a lot of the good things that you did in group stage will now be kind of unwritten, right? People are already kind of talking about their group as the team that had the weakest teams, or at least didn't have the teams that are at the very top. We also have to remember though that Fnatic pushed top to the very edge, right? And they did best Fnatic in their group. I do think that they are deserving of credit for that. At the end of the day, I think they played below their level, and G2 played incredibly well here today, and that kind of just amalgamated in what was a smash.
Yeah, I think Reckless had in his interview during the press conference said no one's going to remember what happened in this loss really, and I think that's not quite true. I think people do remember a lot of times the really great performances even in losses. Like Hilly and Reckless will be remembered. Gen G, I think this is why it feels really bad for them, is there's nothing to remember here. It was utter domination through 3 games. Like Azale's saying, their group stage stuff will largely be forgotten under best of ones and these other kinds of things that people tend to not remember group stage domination. So yeah, I think this is a really feels bad, moment for them compared to other people who are going out in group stage even. It's everyone wants to go further in the tournament, and as a competitor, you rarely take consolation prizes, but they don't even get that this time around.
Yeah, and to just go a level deeper, right? This is a team that has multiple players that are X-Factor players. BDD is legendary on his ability to be able to turn team fights with big control mage ultimates, like his Azir walls and things like that. Ruler is uptime DPS, really great as an AD carry, and we saw what Clid's already been able to do on the international stage. And kind of to echo Mark's point, where was that in this series? Where was one of their players taking the game by the scruff of the neck and saying, you know what, I'm going to drag us over the line once. This one's on me, boys. And it just felt like they got suffocated today by the way G2 played the game. And to me, that's even scarier. Now when you look at G2, because it's if they can kind of handle a team like Gen G that easily. It didn't look like they were breaking sweats at a point, and it looked like when Gen G were launching counterattacks, G2 were kind of laughing them off. Caps is just roaming in on a Silas afterwards, chucking Leona ults at people and picking up triple kills and just erasing what was a really great team fight from Gen G. So they would be very disappointed in this, and I feel like this is a best of 5 where individuals will look at it and be I needed to do more to allow my team to get up, and their best of 5s it really.
It's time for us to hear from G2 themselves on this series. Laura caught up with Caps to talk about their quarterfinals win.
And thank you very much, Dash. Laure here, back in the interview studio here in Berlin, and I have Caps with me to talk about the amazing victory of G2 Esports, who advanced to semifinals. And you guys are the only Western teams who have made it. So first off, congratulations on that. It looked rather one-sided and easy actually from you. So I don't feel like Gen.G changed a lot from the LCK, and we know that they play a lot around Ruler, but is there anything else you learned about the team from group stage that helped you win today?
I think a lot of what they did kind of went as expected. They drafted I feel like every game we kind of outscaled them. First game was very tough early on, but when we managed to survive and we managed to deny them one Drake, which would give them Drake's hold, then suddenly it turned completely in our favor. So it was kind of what we expected, that we would probably outscale them, but we would have to get through early game. And we managed to do that all games, even if game one was a bit sketchy.
I gotta say, there's still a huge difference between G2 in best of ones and G2 in best of fives. How do you explain that?
I mean, best of ones are just there's a lot of variance, right? I mean, you play a lot of for example, one day we played 3 games in a row against different teams, so we can't be prepared for everyone. For example, the last day when we ended up losing the tiebreaker, most of our preparation went into TL and Machi, because obviously if we win against them, we're confirmed out of groups, and then we're not really scared of any team. So first and second scene didn't matter as much as just making out of groups. So we really prepared for them. And then when it came to Suning, obviously we still want to win. Getting first seed is usually better than second seed, but it didn't work out in the end.
Now, talking about G2 as a whole, when we think about the year you had in the LEC, you had a hardest year, I want to say, than 2019, but you come off strong here in World Championship. So how strong do you feel right now?
I mean, I think everyone says this always, but I feel like we can take down every team, right, if we play well. Obviously, we can also lose, but we're definitely catching up a lot. I talked before about the fact that going to Worlds, I think Europe was really, really behind every other region. We were getting completely smashed every scrim. We would lose 0-6 to everyone. But throughout the weeks, we have improved a lot. And every week we were getting better. And now I feel like we're at the point where we can actually challenge the top teams. And then next week, I hope we're at the point where we can just beat the top teams on a consistent basis. So it's just been a crazy feeling, because we were just actually so behind going into Worlds. We just play a completely different game. But now we caught up. We play a lot better game around Jankos. Jankos was super far ahead every single game today. So yeah, he could just pop off.
And you will get the rematch against Damwon. Now, I know that all the Damwon players are ready for you, and they actually want to take their revenge on you. So how do you expect this one to go, and how do we take down Damwon? I feel like we didn't see any weaknesses from the team so far. Do you agree?
Damwon definitely looks strong. I think for me, they've always looked strong. I mean, even last year, they were doing really well against us in scrims. And they were also doing really well, just at Worlds in general, right, and LCK. Obviously, this year they stepped it up one bit, but at the same time, it's nothing that we haven't faced before. We played them last year on stage, and at the end of the day, they just played worse, I think, on stage, and I think we played better on stage. So it's a good match like that, I guess. And obviously, this next week will be a completely different year, different meta. But I believe we can do it. And hopefully we can make it all the way to the final again.
All right, I will trust you on this. Caps, thank you so much for the interview. Congrats on winning this one again, and we'll see you next week. And back to you, Dash.
All right.
Thank you very much, Laura. I love hearing from Caps. I actually really appreciate the perspective, that he gives back on the group stages and kind of their approach as a team to qualifying through, saying that coming into that final day of play, their target was on the 2 teams that they expected to beat but needed to beat to guarantee themselves out, as opposed to focusing on perhaps the tougher matchup against Suning.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting, because once you get through groups, a lot of groups is forgotten. As we're talking about Gen.G, no one's going to remember they were number 1 in their group. They lost 3-0 here. So in that regard, I think, the deeper G2 goes in the tournament, less people will not care that Suning took them down. Or if Suning continues to push far, then it's hey, that was Group A, might have been the low-key, the best group in the tournament. So, I think it was really interesting to hear that, Suning might have had an advantage in that series based off the prep levels.
Absolutely. Now, to close out our discussion on this series, I want to jump into our World's Honors, where we give a Feels Good award to those that deserve it, rather. And Spawn, we're going to start with you today.
Yeah, and I'm going to look straight away to the top lane because I think a lot of this series was played away from that area of the map, but Wonder, every single time I just looked up there, was just getting work done. And this is a guy that, you know, you put him in advantageous positions and he's going to be able to get away with clean advantages, and then you're trying to dive him and he's taking like 1-for-1s in a 1v3 situation. And every single time I watch Wonder play the game, it's all the little things he does. Like, he's always farming safely on his side lane. He rarely gets caught out on the split push. Then to Azael's point, when people are over-capitalizing on his wave, he catches them out very quickly, especially with the use of Caps' pressure. And this is a player that I think that is just absolutely brilliant in his approach to the game, plays multiple styles, and is just such a threat, honestly. And to have top laners from the West that are actually good is just such a great thing to watch, because it's been an area that the Eastern teams have just had over Europe and North America for so long. And to see Wonder like just continually pushing and being that player is really fun to watch.
Some might say he's the best WoW player to ever have touched the game of League of Legends. Mark Z, what about you? What do you think?
I'm not going to dignify that one. I'll give you a moment if you need it now. I'm gonna honor Caps. I mean, it's the easy one. I rushed in as soon as, you know, I think I said middle of game too. I was like, I'd like to honor Caps today. He's such a monster. You know, we talk about how G2 is the sum greater than the sum of all their parts. I mean, it's still worth acknowledging that this is the best Western player of all time. That is the heart and soul of this team, I think, in a lot of ways, and really brought them from a really good team. You know, 2018 G2 was still able to make World Semifinals and brought them to making finals of multiple international tournaments in a row now. And, you know, he is such an beast. He's had the best silence performance at Worlds so far. He had some of the best games of that today. Like, he's a treat to watch. He's an awesome person off the Rift as well. Like, he is such an incredible person, and I can't wait to see how G2 does in the rest of this tournament.
Absolute world-class performance to Azael. Azael, who are you going with?
For me, you know, I wanted to look over at Gen G and give some respect to Ruler. I think that Ruler played in the constraints he was dealing with his 4 teammates. I think that they were not actually playing, you know, like, I don't even mean it as flame. I just think it's just straight up true that their counterparts all played better than them across the board, right? Like, is anyone willing to debate that?
Not me.
So.
Not me.
Exactly. So it's one of those situations where it's like, it's just the fact of the matter, right? Like, Ruler played, I think, a very strong series. I think that often as a marksman, how you look is so dependent upon your team, right? When you are winning and when you are playing from ahead, it's so easy to just move through team fights and clean up kills and really look good. I think that he really was, you know, giving it his best in a losing effort. You know, we saw some brilliant moments from him. I think he was strong across all 3 games, but, you know, unfortunately for him, it wasn't enough at the end of the day.
Yeah, there are actually a number of individual moments within that third game on Ezreal where I was seeing those moments, you know, of brilliance as an AD carry from him, and just wondering what would happen if he had a little bit more support out in front of him. Now, with the quarterfinals complete, let's take another look at the bracket with an eye, of course, towards next week's semifinals. 2 matchups and 2 big ones. They're on the top side, of course, we've got Top Esports against Suning. This is a regional LPL matchup. And then on the bottom side, Damwon Gaming against G2 Esports. 2 teams that 3-0'd their way to the semifinals. And I think that's what is so interesting to me about the 2 sides of the bracket spot. On the top, you got 2 teams that at least dropped 1 game, if not 2, in their quarters. And on the bottom side, you got those blowouts.
Yeah, and I think that when people are looking at the top side of the bracket first, you know, Top Esports coming up against Suning, it would be so easy to be like, Top Esports dealt with this team, and this is supposedly a very one-sided matchup. But I think that discounts the growth that Suning has been able to make lately, and the fact that Top looked much more mortal coming into their quarterfinal than what they did when they were playing within the LPL. And I think that when I see this kind of series as a whole, I am really hopeful that Suning can continue that momentum train and actually get themselves to a world final, which would be so fun because I love the way they play League of Legends at the moment.
Azael?
Yeah, for me, like, I still am more on the top side. You know, I think one of the things that we have to remember is that JDG, like, all 5 of their players, it was their first international event. And I do think that JDG played below the level that they showed in the LPL. I would also say that Zoom absolutely handled Ben in this series, despite the loss. And I think that if Top is playing, you know, more comfortably, and I think having gotten past Fnatic, having avoided, you know, going down 2-0, they stayed calm, they were able to regroup and turn in 3 really strong games. I think that 369 is as good or better than Zoom personally. And I think that he also can really run over Bin. And we saw in the LPL playoffs that Bin did struggle against these elite top laners. He wasn't able to carry in the same ways, and the same thing happened when they did play JDG. I think that it could be the difference, though, in a stronger top.
I will say, though, that you saw a bit of a blueprint on how to take down top from Fnatic there about how much they could attack the bot lane. People were identifying JackeyLove and Yuyanja as potential, not necessarily weak point, because JackeyLove's obviously a great player, but can lose and kind of get over aggressive or greedy, whatever you want to call it. Hwangfeng dominated in that series. He was so incredible, and they have the pieces to kind of emulate some of that blue plan.
The blue plan.
Excuse me.
Everyone knows the blue plan.
It's
blueprint.
blue side plan. There's blue
I'm going to keep going on. No, we're not stopping. That Fnatic put forward, and I think that they can do that. And as well as the fact that SOFM is an incredible jungler, and Bin is an incredible top lane. If 369 is not able to perform like he was domestically, then they're going to have a lot of trouble versus Suning. And I think this is a lot closer of a matchup than people would have thought a week ago when now these teams are matching up.
All I'm going to say is, how did JackeyLove look the last 3 games? Because I think he was very, very good, right?
So game 4, they still were getting clapped on.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's just tough to rely on JackeyLove to underperform like in the same way. He looked awful, I think, in those first games against Fnatic. Those were some of the worst games I think I've ever seen from him. He has been, pretty stone cold for the most part in his career. So, I think it's hard to depend upon that type of performance coming out to him. Like, if that's your win condition, is JackeyLove playing like he did against Fnatic? I wouldn't want to be in that position.
Yeah, and the thing about top that we have to continually go back to, because sure, they had a couple of rough games at World so far. 369 is considered the best, if not second best top laner within the LPL. Karsa, for me, is consistently one of the best junglers in the world. This team is more than JackeyLove, right? So JackeyLove can have those crazy moments where he just randomly runs in and dies, but you got people like Karsa, and his Lee Sin games in particular were just absolutely spectacular to be able to watch. So, I looked down the top esports, and I didn't get to the fact that they have the best mid laner in the world on their lineup as well. So you look down the top esports lineup, and you just think, you know what? They can afford to have a rough game here or there, because the other 4 players, they probably got a little bit of slack there for them.
Yeah, there are two big things for me here. Number one that I'm hearing is the importance of recognizing that top esports is not infallible, right? As a team, I think the expectation was pretty great for them coming into the tournament. They did not go undefeated in the group stages. For the first time we didn't have that. Then we get to the quarterfinal. They do drop those 2 games in surprising fashion. They squeak through, but hey, they were challenged. And then back to your point, Mark, around the number of players on Suning that have stepped up and leveled up over the course of the World's Tournament. We already hit one of them in Hwangfeng. The other one, though, is Karsa's opponent in the jungle. SOFM has hit another level here on the world stage.
Yep, coming in, he was one of the people that a lot of people would say was up for best jungler in the world. It's starting to narrow that list a lot. He's still near the top of that, and I think he will be one of the big X factors in an upset win if Suning is able to pull it off.
The other big story point here is less of a contentious point, more of a story point. Karsa, Sword Art. I love seeing these 2 guys on the Rift, on the stage at the same time. There's so much history here.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Flash Wolves reunion, right? It's so cool, actually, to see these guys who have been around for so many years, and really were truly standout players through all those years, for their regions, for their teams, and to see them actually have all the pieces around them now to truly shine on the international stage. It is a team game. We already knew that they were amazing when they were on these worst squads, but they now have some of the best players in the world surrounding them, and they can truly shine. They can truly show us how great they are as players.
And I mean, to combo a little bit back down to that bot lane point, we're talking a lot about JackeyLove, but it is a duo lane, and I mean, Sword Art versus Yuyanja does feel like a bit of a mismatch based off their performances thus far at Worlds. Yuyanja was criticized for some of the mistakes he was making in spring.
Bench game.
Yeah. I mean, it was a rough series for him. I think he set the record for most deaths pre-15 or something like that. So, I mean, that's another place that you have to keep your eye on when we start talking about this bot lane. JackeyLove is an incredible player, but if Sword Art can find better engages in lane phase and win some trades, it might not be about the 80 carries quite as much.
All right. Well, it's not like we really narrowed down to any one or two matchups that you got to keep your eyes on, but that's what I love about it. This is a semifinal that's going to demand you take a look at every lane and every matchup at some point during it. Moving on to the second semifinal that we've got coming up, a clash between the LCK's Damwon Gaming and the LEC's G2. And as we stated when looking at the bracket, both of these teams smashed through their quarterfinals in 3-0 fashion. But let's start with Damwon, the hope for the LCK, Spawn.
Yeah, and I think that you look how dominant this team was throughout the LCK and the final series in particular. Then you look at how dominant they've been through Worlds and the fact that they were able to pick up that 3-0. And honestly, we're talking about how G2 looked like they were having fun today. Well, honestly, Damwon didn't look like they were tested at all by DRX. They just had their, the run of the map from minute 1 in that series. So this is a team that I don't even, have they shown anything yet? Have we even seen them put the car into second gear yet? This is a team that is so damn scary on the world stage.
Azael?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the least competitive, if not the least competitive quarterfinal I can ever remember. Yeah. And it was over the number 2 team from the LCK, right? So let's just put that out there. This wasn't like, oh, well, it was against ANX or whoever, right? This was against, a powerhouse region. And I do think that despite the fact that G2 really did handle Gen G, I don't think that you can use that and then just say, all right, well, they beat one Korean team, so now they're going to beat the next one. They may be able to do it, but I do think that Damwon looked so heads and shoulders above the rest of their entire league. I actually felt that LCK got a fair bit weaker this year compared to previous years, but that was excluding Damwon, who truly is world class and people have had from the very beginning as a championship contender. And I think that of those 3 teams that people kind of put in that conversation, which was JDG, who are out top, who have, almost got knocked out. Damwon is the one that has kind of the unblemished record. They're the only one remaining that you don't really have much to say about them, just kind of knock them down a few pegs. So I do think that this is a much greater challenge for G2, and I still think it is heavily Damwon favored. I am hopeful for G2, but I would not be surprised to see Damwon just absolutely slap them down.
And there's a lot of history in this matchup, too. I mean, just going back to last year, the 3-1 in favor of G2 over Damwon, there was only one player different, and that was, Ghost coming in for Nuclear. But Damwon has been on this upward trajectory over the course of their history. Back in 2018, they were kind of under the radar, but everyone knew how great they were behind the scenes in the scrim culture. Then they were super hyped up coming to that Worlds, a little bit of a flop. Now they're hands down undisputed best team in Korea, and they're starting to deliver on that. And now they get to go up against G2, who kind of started that arc a couple years earlier of just kind of being on this slow, steady upward swing to making back-to-back international finals. So I am really excited to see them go back at it. And Naguri was one of those people who was super criticized at that previous Worlds, who is dominating now at this one.
Spawn, I want to come to you, but I just want to call out here while the graphic is still up. 6 solo kills for Naguri over 9 games. The dude's only played 9 games at Worlds, and he's got 6 solo kills.
And that's what I was going to say. The good news for G2 is your top side of the map is playing insane at the moment. The bad news for G2 is Damwon probably have the best top side ever. And I say that because all 3 of their players on the top side of the map are probably top 2 in their role at the moment. Like Noguri is definitely in the conversation for top lane. Canyon at the moment, if he isn't the best jungle at the tournament, because the only person that people kept throwing around was Kanavi. And Kanavi's Dade award worthy at the moment, right? So Canyon at the moment definitely has to be the best jungler for mine. And then Showmaker versus Caps is maybe the most excited I've been for a mid lane matchup in a very long time. So short, G2 are playing well in that area of the map, but I just think that these players on the top side of Summoner's Rift for Damwon Gaming are special beyond belief.
Azael, let's talk a little bit more about this mid lane matchup, particularly with tonight's series, affecting that conversation. I think this has to be the featured matchup.
I would agree. I mean, I think that if there is a way to beat Damwon, it is for Caps to play a style that Damwon is not prepared for, right? When we saw that Damwon was playing against DRX basically played the same game as Damwon, just worse, and that is why I think it looked so dominant. It never felt like there was any challenge for them at all. Caps will not play like Showmaker. Caps will play like Caps, and I think that is one of the beautiful things about G2 and one of the beautiful things about this player is that he is going to play his game. He is going to take risks. He is going to challenge you and force you to react to each and everything he does the entire game and even the entire series. And if you're not up to that, if you're not playing at his pace, you will fall behind and you will lose.
Yeah, I think the clash of styles is such an interesting point. Just like, Damwon's willing to grind you out. If you're not going to, force a fight against them, they will happily take CS leads, jungle advantages, vision advantages, and objectives. G2 doesn't play that way at all. Just the pace of the game between these two is night and day. Combined kills per minute was totally different. And so I'm excited to see what happens to Damwon when someone punches back finally and really hits them in the mouth. And you're not playing this clean game with all your waves set up like Wadid was talking about, at the top of the show. G2 will play scrappy. They'll play dirty. And I want to see Damwon and how they're able to react to that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that what impresses me about Damwon is their approach to objectives and how their flankers are always deep on flanks, because they always do get that wave control that Mark is talking about. But the easiest way to attack that is in the setup. And if G2 continue to play these like tempo cheat champions like the Tahm Kench, the Twisted Fate, the Shen, then you have the ability to attack that setup very well. And that's what G2 excels at. They are hands down the best team that we've seen in the last couple of years of accelerating the pace of the game when you're trying to find setup and trying to find these windows. And that's what makes this stylistically like a pretty good matchup for G2, I think. Like that's what makes me excited and give them hope for this best of 5.
And I think it goes back to what Wadid was talking about earlier, where he's talking about the LCK teams are always prioritizing the perfect setup, right? Whereas G2 is just grouping and fighting you. They're the ones starting the fight, even if they're behind, where, we saw Gen G tonight trying to make sure, all right, waves got to be pushed out, then we set up the vision, G2's already killing us, right? And it's that kind of thing where they don't always check all the boxes. They don't always have the perfect setup with every wave bouncing at the tower, and then they move, and then they look for the TP flank. Sometimes they go for the imperfect play because they see an opportunity. They see a window to force something where they're going to get more from killing you than they will lose for not having those minions set up.
Sometimes you just got to group mid and fight. I don't think it could be said better than that, and that's what Wadid said earlier tonight. Well, either way, we are guaranteed to have one LPL team into the finals. It's going to be either Top Esports or Suning as they battle it out. And then, of course, the winner of that match will await the winner of G2 versus Damwon Gaming. That's going to do it for us here, though, tonight and the end of the quarterfinals. So for myself, the casters, and the remote broadcast crews from all around the world, thank you for watching, and enjoy a look back at the quarterfinals with our Axe highlights. We'll see you next week for more Worlds.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the caster desk for Worlds 2020. It's the beginning of the knockout stage. I'm Atlas, and I am joined by LS to take you through a rematch of the LCK Summer Final.
A little bit of an adventure. Here comes Pyoshik, though.
Yeah, Dogger's gonna flash it. Massive slicing Maelstrom into the backline. The Lulu dies immediately. Doran gonna go down as well. Okay, Arrow is going to connect here as Chovy tried to disintegrate someone off to the side, but Pyoshik is the one in trouble. Goes not a lot of mana, but he's got arrows, and he will be able to take them down. It is going to be Chovy falling as well. Damwon looking absolutely unstoppable in this first quarterfinal. 3-0, as many predicted. Are you ready for some LPL bloodbath?
Oh yeah, I am so ready for this.
Ben trying to change this up, but where does that? Watch in!
He's in the
base! Behind the curtains with the curtain call! Everybody is done, man. Hwanfeng is legendary with the Drake down nearly down to 0 HP. It's going to be slain by Hwanfeng! If the man didn't already do enough this series, he just got the Ocean Soul for his team. Loken is down. Hwanfeng's on a rampage, and boy is he not stopping. Suning